Meeting for October 3rd, 2024, called to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Just let the record show that all directors are in attendance tonight, including Student Board Representative Ashley Acton and Kyle Tucker. Before we proceed, I just want to spend a couple minutes and just make a statement. And so, apologize for reading it, but it's a lot and I can't remember it all. So,
we can't hear you, Victor.
Okay, I'll try to talk loud.
Really
Okay. Welcome to tonight's school board meeting. Thank you for being here and for your engagement in the policies that affect our district. I want to address the proposed WIA amendment process for changing the gender identity participation policy in Washington and the discussion circulating online, email, and in text. First, I want to acknowledge the concerns many of you have expressed. Your voices matter as we navigate these important issues, especially when it comes to children. Everyone on this board wants to protect girls' sports and want to see sports protected under the original Title IX. I also want to express that I am not serving on the board because I wanted to be a politician, but to influence public policy, education policy, and to keep our focus on what matters most, education. As a board, our primary responsibility is to establish policies that help our students thrive academically, and in this case, athletically. While we provide governance, the day-to-day operations are managed by our superintendent, who works hard to implement our directives. Lynden has great schools, and our district is doing a great job educating students. Our staff, administrators, and educators show up every day committed to the mission and vision we all signed up to support. In regard to the recent Facebook post discussing the amendment decision, I want to emphasize that I am always open to conversation. I'm just a call, text, or email away from anyone wanting to understand the board's decisions, or at the very least, my decisions. I encourage constructive criticism, something that seems to be lacking today, and I prefer to engage in civil discourse. I don't like that compromises are necessary, but I hope the decisions we make as a board will keep us moving in the right direction. I resent the sentiment that there is something nefarious at play. Only 5 individuals have reached out asking me for clarification. Regarding the online character attacks, it appears to be more of a personal opinion rather than objective truth, presenting a skewed portrayal of events. Such characterizations distract from our ability to engage in constructive dialogue and undermine the progress we strive for as a district. It's disheartening to see personal attacks overshadow our collective mission, especially when we all have similar views on the political issues facing education. This board is committed to transparency and due process in all decisions, including the WIA amendment. Lynden is the originating school for the amendment that restricts girls' sports to those assigned female at birth, with support from 12 other schools, including Lynden Christian and Blaine. While exceptions, the appeals process, are mentioned, they are not a requirement or recommendation by the board. This stems from collaborative efforts with superintendent statewide to address students with complex medical situations. 𝒆𝒄𝒕𝒊𝒄𝒕𝒖𝒓𝒆𝒅 School District is also proposing an amendment to create a separate category for transgender athletes, which with Lynden as one of its 3 supporting schools. This is a nonpartisan position, and I share your frustrations with operating in a polarized environment, especially in a partisan state. Finally, I invite anyone with further concerns to engage with us through the appropriate channels. Thank you for your attention. Let's proceed with tonight's agenda. Moving on to approval for the agenda. Any requests to remove any items from the agenda or amend the agenda in any other way? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the agenda.
I second the motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any questions, discussion?
Yes, I have a question. Last board meeting, I had requested if we are able to put the WIAA amendment that we're talking about on the agenda for discussion and context, but I did not receive any response in regards to that.
Is this anything that can be shared for information for board directors?
No. Last board meeting on September 19, I had requested that if we could put the WIAA amendment on the agenda so that we are able to create a space for discussion of that, and I did not receive a response to that request.
I believe at the meeting, anybody can correct me, but that it was decided, we signed it, and it had a certain amount of time before it needed to be submitted. And so there wasn't going to be an opportunity to address 12 other schools that signed on and change that. Because that was, a lot of thought went in there and a lot of compromise went in there to actually, for schools to sign on to be a part of that amendment.
Right, and sorry, just to correct, we only need 4 schools. And just to correct another thing, when you said that the appeals process, since you had an opportunity to say your statement out of the information from board portion, I'm just going to respond to clear that fact, that this amendment, I have an email from a superintendent with whom this was shared to. On September 4, 2024, this appeals process was already in that draft that was shared with the other superintendents across that call. So when you say that the appeals process was a result of that collaborative, meetings, that is incorrect. So just those 2 facts that I wanted to correct. As far as putting this,
I disagree. I disagree that that wasn't a collaborative effort. Because it didn't need to be something that we signed off on. Am I?
hang on.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You're saying the appeal, what in your statement, you just said
The
that the
WIA
appeals
amendment.
process. Yes, that the appeals process in it was a result of a collaborative effort from the meeting of the superintendents that Mr. David VanderYacht had led. So I just wanted to correct the fact that when that meeting was, that meeting invite was sent to the superintendents, this draft was already created and attached to it. So the appeals process was already created by our superintendent, and then it was shared further than to the other superintendent. It wasn't a result of those meetings, that appeals portion.
Okay.
I just wanted to clear that up.
And so your concern is that, what?
My concern was to clear those 2 things that were said that were not true, and then going back to my original request of, I had requested if we could put this on the agenda, because last board meeting, during information from board, I had concerns about this amendment. And then we were told, because, that it was not on the agenda as an action item, we were just discussing, and we can't really do something about it. So that's when I had said and requested, are we able to then put this to the next board meeting?
Yeah.
And I did not, I can go back and listen to that recording, but I do not believe that I had a response from you to, either approve or deny that request and the reason.
So Director Brar, are you prepared, do you want to make a motion to amend the agenda? I guess is the question. And then,
No, I'm talking about the agenda. I have a question about the agenda that is presented by the president. So
Okay.
I don't really have a motion right now, but because I had already requested that during the last meeting, and I just wanted to follow up on that.
okay, but that's not on the agenda. So our process for putting it on the agenda is for somebody to make a motion to amend the agenda.
Right. There
Is
are
that
two-
what you want to do?
That's the second part. No, I don't want to do it at this point because the request was not originally upheld or considered, so there's no point.
Okay.
Well, we have a motion and second. That's our discussion. Is there anything else?
No?
Okay. I'll entertain a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay?
Okay. Motion carried by voice vote. I'll turn it over to Superintendent VanderYacht for the good news.
All right, good news. The Lynden Alumni Association has the honor of selecting the Alumni of the Year for Lynden Schools. And this year they selected Tanya Castellon Rojas as the 2024 Alumni of the Year. Ms. Rojas is a 2005 graduate and was recognized this morning at the homecoming assembly. We'll also recognize her at the football game tomorrow night. And so I had the pleasure of presenting the award this morning. Tanya was unable to make it because she was in a training, but her mother and father joined, and Tanya's message was about the sacrifices that parents make to create better lives for their children. And so the student body of Lynden High School saw an emotional Mr. VanderYacht today. But I want to thank the students that are here for participating and showing that acknowledgement. Lynden Academy completed their first round of STAR assessments, which serves as one piece of important data for targeted academic supports and personalization of learning plans. Other good news, Fisher Elementary School is incorporating U.S. history into their music lessons. The folk dance, the Boston Tea Party, is an engaging way for fifth graders to connect with the history of the American Revolution through movement. This hands-on experience helps students gain a deeper understanding of this historical event and brings history to life. And the Lynden Academy K-5 students attended their first field trip of the year to Hovender and Tennant Lake in Ferndale. It was an amazing experience to connect parents, students, and staff.
Awesome. So now appropriate time to say that Mr. Kyle Tucker is, what happened today, Kyle?
I got nominated for homecoming court.
Congratulations. Oh, the memories of high school.
So moving on to meeting minutes for September 19th, 2024 on page 5. Is there any corrections to the meeting minutes? If there's none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the meeting minutes from the September 19th meeting.
A second.
Motion made, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried by voice vote. Consent agenda for AP payroll for September 16th as well as September 30th. And personnel recommendation for today's date. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as contained in their package.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any discussion, questions?
Yeah, I'm slightly confused. So we have Jody Oliver, who came on, but then she's also on leave of absence. Is that right? Or is that a mistake?
She's moved a position. She's moved into a different position.
Okay.
So her new position is as a leave replacement, as a special education teacher, and she's taking a leave from her current position as a paraeducator at BVE to fulfill that responsibility.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
that makes
That
sense.
makes sense.
All right.
That makes it a little weird.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried by voice vote. We'll move on to now information from the audience. Thank you. Before I call everybody up, can I just want to, we changed our little messaging and I want to read it. It says each speaker has a maximum of 5 minutes. It's important for the community members to feel welcome and safe during the meeting. Board members listen and learn from public comment, but generally will not respond. Topics raised during public comment may receive a follow-up from a board member or the superintendent at a later date as appropriate. The school board does not take public comments on issues related to personnel or individually named staff members. The presiding officer of the board reserves the right to terminate an individual statement when the allotted time has passed and may interrupt a speaker to require the same standard of civility as the board imposes on itself as specified in Board Policy 1400. First person I'm going to call up is Mary Lou Childs. Come on up.
Is this on?
It's only on
It's
for the
for
recording, Mary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I can talk really loud. And I'm gonna talk really loud so y'all can hear me, because I want you to hear this too. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So earlier, as you were speaking, I was making a few notes, and this gender assigned at birth indicates to me that people are buying into the idea that we assign gender at birth. That's nonsense. You're either a boy with a penis or you're a girl with a vagina. That's it. There's no in between. If you're a boy, you're a boy. If you're a girl, you're a girl. We know that boys in general are taller, stronger, because they have more muscle. So why would a boy who decides he wants to be a girl somehow insist that he wants to play against girls in sports? Why would a boy decides he wants to be a girl, but now he's got the musculature, all of that, but he wants to play against girls in sports? Could it be that he knows he's a mediocre athlete at best as a boy, but he knows he has an advantage as a girl? Even if he's given hormones, he still has the muscular, he has the height, generally speaking. When I look at that, I think this person has no, what would the word be? He's a cheater. Just a downright cheater. He knows he has an advantage. He was born with an advantage. So in sports, Title IX, I've talked to you guys before, Title IX became Title IX the year I graduated from high school in 1972. I just turned 70 2 days ago. And this fires me up like almost nothing else. Because women have worked, girls have worked so hard in 50 years to finally get to compete. Now you get to see where women's sports is so exciting. And then you get some clown in there who wants to be a girl when he's a boy, and he's hurting them. Have you heard the news? How people are reporting now that boys, transgender boys, they're bigger, they're more muscular, some of these girls are getting hurt by these boys wanting to be girls. And I still think they're just cheating. They have no sense of what's fair at all, because they don't mind going in there cheating. They were mediocre athletes when they were boys, and now they're champions as girls. That's cheating. So I hope, for one, I hope you can, this gender assigned at birth language is just ridiculous. I would hope that you could drop that and quit kowtowing to the woke people in the crowd. And I really, really hope that you do not give an inch on this. That people can't be allowed to have their testosterone checked, their testosterone level checked. That is not it. It's DNA. They're a boy or they're a girl. That's it. And what would be the other loophole? That they dress like a girl. Whatever. So anyways, my opinion is loud and clear. I wouldn't give an inch. I wouldn't, what's that when you meet in the middle?
Compromise.
This is not an issue to compromise on. It's not an issue to compromise on. There's lots of things we can compromise on. This is not one of them. That's my humble opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you, Mary Lou.
Thank you, Mary Lou.
Next to speak is Jackie Wilson.
I echo what Mary Lou just said.
Thank you.
Next to speak is Mike Wilson.
Well, to be honest, this isn't really something I want to be here talking about, but, I mean, and I'll be honest, I don't know the nuances of your position. I will say this, however. If there wasn't a difference between male and female, we wouldn't have male and female sports to start with.
Right.
So, I don't care what they claim whether they're on hormones to reduce their capacity or whatnot, it doesn't matter. The advantage is born in. And if it wasn't there, there wouldn't have been a need for Title IX in the first place. So, whatever, I mean, if you're going to allow a male to pretend to be a female and reduce their testosterone to whatever, are we gonna allow more females to take testosterone as a performance enhancer to compete? I mean, this is ridiculous. And I, for one, if we're gonna play this game, and we're gonna be allowing males to compete in female sports, I will never vote for another bond issue for this school until that is resolved. That's it.
Thank you, Mike. Next on the list is Ethan Williams.
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak. This is my first time here, so I'm still kind of getting used to it. But I'd like just to address the fact that this whole issue with this was brought to light back in the end of May with the state track and field meet. I was there. I witnessed the fact that a man claiming to be a woman decided to compete in the female sport, took the gold, stole the opportunity from many girls, including one of our own athletes there. Any opportunity of, like, there are people there specifically competing so they can get seen, to get scholarships, and this dude decided to steal that opportunity. And so, just seeing that has, like you're saying, fired me up quite a bit, but I'm thankful for at least you guys are beginning to and trying to find the way. We aren't in a great state, unfortunately, to be able to do that, but like it's been said, please continue to really push for us. Well, I'm just out of high school, I'm still kind of getting used to that, but yeah, push for the students for protection and keeping things fair and good and how they should be. Sorry, there's one.
It's okay, take your time. Yep.
Yeah, and don't give an inch. Don't give an inch with what we've seen already with colleges and how that's already played out, and even with this, when an inch is given, it's taken a mile. So don't give an inch. Continue to push forward and protect these kids.
Thank you,
Ethan.
Next to speak is Brar.
Good evening, everyone. I am here to talk as a parent, a tax-paying voter, and also being part on the board. So I am here to ask questions of the nuances that the people, the community do not know, but do have a right to know. So I ask the board, and I will demand a response to this, hopefully either at next meeting or whenever you are able, as you have just said. Which law will the board break if it asks WIAA to delineate a transgender category or to protect our girls' sports? Why I'm asking that is because that is the excuse that is being given by board individual members, by the superintendent, anybody in the administration that is saying that if we propose to WIAA to protect girls' sports for only those that are female at birth, that we are breaking the law. Mind you that you are not changing your own board policy here. You are proposing an amendment to an association, and there is no lawyer that is going to come and do a lawsuit on you for a draft, for a proposal that is not yet a policy. Now, second question is an appeals a required component in submission of a WIAA amendment? If that is so, why didn't the other districts do that as well? Why didn't Eastmont put an appeals process in there? Third question, I want to repeat Mary Lou. Assigned female at birth. Do not play with words. Anyone with 2 brain cells can say that sex is not assigned. Sex is already established at conception, and it is recognized at birth. It is not assigned. So under the WIAA's current policy, the requirement for a transgender student to play is that they identify as a transgender. But with this amendment that you are submitting, let's say it does become a policy, you are actually incentivizing and encouraging the transgender students to take hormone blockers or enhancers so that they are able to comply with your requirement of a hormone testing or any other kind of test that you would put under the appeals process, which is unclear at this moment. So this is neither fair, neither inclusive. It's a lose-lose situation on both sides. Fourth point is that when you look at your own resolution as a board, you had passed that you would want to develop, the superintendent to develop an amendment that is both fair and equitable. I ask you, is this fair and equitable? It wasn't fair or equitable. You as a board has the final decision on this matter. There is no reason why this WIAA amendment was not put on an agenda at all for the public to view, even at the minimum for at least an informational item if you're not going to discuss it. But because you justify it as not being a board item, I understand it doesn't have to go to the agenda, but also, do we really need a reason for transparency here? I do not think so. And I think we can be transparent about our efforts. And yes, I am being hammered as far as why did I go to Facebook? I'm sorry, as a parent, this is the hill that I'm going to die on. I have done my research, I have presented it to you. This is me as a parent and as a board member speaking here. I have done my research, I know where I'm talking from. You have no evidence of proving that a transgender category has been ruled out by any federal or state court as violation of any kind of law. You are making a decision on an assumption. So I hope that you take a look into that first, that when you make decision on assumptions that this may violate the law and you don't have proof that it has or not, whether it has or it hasn't violated the law, that's where your responsibility as a board member kind of kicks in to know what is the scope of your responsibility and authority on the board. So those questions are pretty legal, and I would hope that the board will have the courtesy to at least respond to that. I have emailed you that this morning as a parent. Thank you.
Thank you, Kush. Next to speak is Doris Smith.
I've been thinking all day about this. I have not attended meetings for a while, so I don't know the details of the agenda, presence of an item, but I do want to say or ask, is an amendment necessary? As I understand it, Title IX is protecting girls and setting up separate athletic opportunities for boys and girls. So if a young man comes and says he feels like a girl, to the coach, the athletic directors, it is on them to be adults, courageous, and say, you are not a girl. You cannot play. You cannot compete. I don't even feel an amendment is necessary. What's necessary is courage on the part of teachers, coaches, and the community at large. This school-based health clinics, it's a shame, because it appears that it's a technicality that you have a school-based health clinic in order to let young people take hormone blockers. It will make them sterile. It will make them not be able to have children. It will twist their minds. It's another ploy for there to be some program in schools that can receive funding from the state or under this current presidential administration, the federal level. These programs are just ways for you to get money. And I, as a citizen, know from research that the salaries of teachers and administrators is way above average. And I think there's ways to have an educational enterprise for young people that does not cost so much money. The present candidate for Superintendent of Public Instruction said he would have an idea for hubs, and that would be a way for retired or people who have knowledge in the sciences to teach the children. I would love to have go through Plato's Republic, and have discussion groups with young people. I would not charge. It's not necessary to have high-paying teachers. And I would like to say that as a person in the community, whatever happens in schools here is okay. I do not know what happens. And your school board is supposed to be, you get the name directors. But I think that's a feel-good name because it doesn't appear that you really direct anything that is of value for the young people. And I would like to close that if you're not strong enough to be telling a boy that he cannot participate in girls' sports, then I would urge you to quietly vote in the privacy of you and your ballot for Donald Trump. He's been very vocal against transgender issues, repeating, "I will keep men out of women's sports," in many of his speeches. He has said he will restore the ban on openly transgender people serving in the military, which is a ban that his previous administration imposed, and that he will sign a law to stop gender-affirming care for minors nationwide, equating such care to mutilation. He also vowed to dismantle a Title IX expansion under President Joe Biden to include gender identity under sex-based discrimination protections. Thank you.
Doris?
Thank you, Doris.
Doris, can I ask you a question? Are our school-based health clinics giving out hormones?
As far as I know, I told you that what happens in the school district is okay to me, but I understand that school-based health clinics do that.
Okay. To my knowledge, ours do not.
We do not have.
We do not have them.
You do not even have a school-based health clinic? Okay, well, good. I hope you don't in the future.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes public comment. On to reports.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
So, yesterday, a very good friend of mine sent me a message. He said, "Ken, what's going on in the school board? Are you guys really trying to make it so that boys can play in girls' sports?" And I was taken quite aback by that because it seems to me that this board, these 5 people, have done quite a bit to fight against that. I can't speak for everybody on the board. I can speak for myself. I oppose biological males playing in female sports. I'm against it, 100%. And I can't fathom how it is that a good friend of mine would come to the conclusion that somehow I'm actually working in the opposite direction that I'm trying to work in, or that this board is doing that. I'm getting a little more worked up than I probably should about it because I feel it as a personal attack on who I am. So thanks to all of you who came and spoke today, but today is the first time I heard from you. And I appreciate it. And I appreciate all of you who came and spoke today, but today is the first time I heard from you. So thanks to all you who came and spoke today, but today is the first time I heard from you. So love to get an email from you so I can share with you what I showed with my friend and what I shared with everybody else who has communicated with me, which is that, starting before the last board election, I spoke with Director Hickman and said, we need to bring up that gender inclusive policy. Remember we had that conversation? We need to figure a way to get that on the agenda because I do not like it and I want to change it. I don't know how many people in this room know that prior to a few weeks ago, this school board, along with almost every other school district in the state, had a board policy that required the district to lie to parents.
That's right.
There's no other way to put it. To lie to parents.
Lie to parents.
To lie to parents. There's no other way to put it. There's no other way to say it. That's what that policy did. We changed that policy. This board did. These 5 people changed that policy. Sorry, it's a procedure, not a policy. That's what we did. We sent letters to our 3 legislators saying, you need to look at this. We need to change this. This is wrong. We need to protect the integrity of female sports. We sent a letter to the director of the WIAA. We've talked to OSPI, to WASDA. In fact, we've even put ourselves to some level of risk with OSPI because we changed that procedure. So this board right here, is doing what not very many other school districts are doing, which is fighting back against this. But yet, there are people in this community who have to come to the conclusion that this board is actually doing the opposite of that. And they're doing that because somebody put something on Facebook that misled the community. Period. That's it. And it makes me angry because I came on the board to serve and to make this district better. And because there's a bit of disagreement, which is fine, that disagreement is great. But because there's some disagreement, we now are characterized as unethical, as woke. Am I woke? I'm not woke, okay? But because stuff goes on Facebook, and because there's no opportunity, you talk about transparency, well, guess what? That post was blocked from most of the other school board members. Couldn't even see it, couldn't comment on it, nothing. But yet, we're all woke, school board's gone liberal, and my friend thinks, for some reason, that we are trying to make it so boys can play in girls' sports. Here's the thing. A couple people said, don't give an inch. Guess what? We don't have an inch to give. We are on the other end of the rope. This state has policies and laws that put us all way at the other end. We're trying to claw some rope back, guys. That's what we're trying to do on this board, okay? So if we have some minor I won't say minor, there's significant disagreements, but if we have disagreements, then let's have them, but let's find a way to move forward. My father told me 35 years ago, he said, do you know why the liberals always win? Incrementalism. Because they don't care if they get an inch, a half an inch, a quarter of an inch. They will get every inch, and they'll get it every time. They don't fight with each other. Here we are actually trying to do what all of you guys want us to do, and we're accosted for it. That's what we are. And I don't blame you, because if I was in your seat, I might be mad too. But we've done a lot of work to try to move the needle in the right direction. This is a state we're not going to move it well in. Just the fact of the matter, I think the young man said that. But we're going to try. We're going to try. And I'm not going to give up just because somebody thinks I'm not doing enough. And that's all I have to say on the matter.
Yep. Go ahead, Danny. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, if I can just a minute. I want to reiterate Director Owsley's comments. We are, I think, by far the most conservative board that this community has had in a while. And there's not one person here that would say that boys belong in girls' sports at all. And in fact, as Director Owsley rightly stated, it's something that we are actively pushing against given the laws and restrictions of Washington State. God is the one who assigns gender. He, from conception, is the one who says, I decree this to be a boy and this to be a girl. And I need our community to hear that. That is the sentiment that this board holds. And so while there might be some misinformation that is posted online, there's no boogeyman. We are actively aiming to be as transparent and honest with you as possible. In fact, I just came from a meeting where we're talking about sexual education and the curriculum that we teach our 5th graders, our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and our high schoolers. There's no secret. And I would love to show you where you can find those resources online. Every single thing, the videos we show, the material we teach, we make our own curriculum because we don't align with a lot of the values that Olympia is pushing out. So Lynden, please hear that we hear your frustration, we share your passions and energies for this. I have a daughter, and I want her to compete in whatever sport she wants and not have to worry that she's going to face a biological male and just be dominated. And as long as I'm on the board, that's what I'll fight against. I know that as long as these individuals are on the board, that's what we'll fight against. So I really thank you all for showing up and for sharing your passions and thoughts. And it's open communication with all of us. Seriously, if you have questions, let us know. If you see something, hey, what's this about? Are you woke? Ask us. No, we're absolutely not. So that's all I have to say.
I don't have a lot to add to that. I think I couldn't agree more with what Director Owsley and Director Martinez said. There isn't a single person, to my knowledge, on this board that wants what's happening currently to continue happening. Okay, and that's true for, I think, each and every one of us. The question is how do we go about getting the change we want?
That's right.
I was sharing some of this with a staunch Democrat friend of mine at work and mentioned that, yeah, there's people that think I'm woke now, and he laughed. No, this board, no, that's not the case. The reality is, just like Ethan, the young man, said, this is a tough state for people that don't agree with what's happening. We didn't get here overnight. This has been going on for years, folks. This is and just like Director Owsley said, the folks that feel very strongly about this on the other side think they're well-intentioned. They think they're doing the right thing, and they pursue this with a religious zeal. And so we have to understand, and this is the thing, we're on a journey. We're trying to figure out what the best thing to do is, and the WIA amendment is part of that. The likely outcome, though, is, I'm just going to be honest with all of you, the likely outcome is that the WIA, because they've already stated it, is going to come back and say, no, this is, despite what's being said, they're going to say this is against the law. And they're not going to do it.
Yeah, they've already said that.
So then we have to ask ourselves, what's the next step? And those things can range from a whole variety of things. I hear lots of talk about Title IX, but those things require potentially some sacrifices. And we just have to be, as a board and as a school district, and most importantly, as a community, have to be thoughtful about those things. And those decisions don't just affect me or any other directors on this board. They also affect our student athletes and their parents. So that's my message, is that yes, and I appreciate, this is the one good thing to come out of all this, is I do appreciate all of you showing up and engagement from the community, because that's what it's going to take. Not just at this level, at the state level, and everywhere else.
I just have two quick things to say. The Facebook post that I have made was not to name call anyone, neither it is to throw anybody under the bus. I still have two questions that will remain, and hopefully that you guys can answer, because all of your points are valid. We have the same sentiments. We're talking about, do you really know the process of what we are taking as far as steps in order to protect girls' sports? The biggest question is, and the document that was in question, there's a lot being said, but then you're missing the point of the document that was presented to be the WIAA amendment form. The appeals portion, is that a required component or not? Because Eastmont District has submitted their amendment, and they did not put any kind of appeals in there. So that's my question, is, do you really know have you done your research whether or not that appeals is required or not? And then second question is, did we really look at all of our options? Because I do not recall having any kind of executive session. I do not have an email of a legal analysis of all of our options. We're just given one option. There was another option I was told that we would submit, which was the transgender category. But now it has been decided by one person, by the superintendent, that it would not be submitted.
It
So
wasn't
my
decided by
question-
one person, it was decided by this whole board.
Okay,
That's a
okay.
lie.
Okay, good. So my question right there is, when you say to justify that you do not want the transgender category, was that coming from a legal analysis point of view, or was it because you do not agree with that solution?
I don't agree with that solution. I think it's a ridiculous idea. And I said that in the meeting. And it's a ridiculous idea for two reasons. Number one, it's not like, well, WIA is going to look at that and go, oh, hallelujah, this solves our problem with discrimination, number one. Number two, it doesn't solve the problem. The problem is, so now you've created a new category, and we're going to have people with XY chromosomes and people with XX chromosomes competing against each other. You're going to have the same problem. So no, I don't agree with it. And the reason why I voted against it, Director Brar, is because of the points that also Director Owsley made in that meeting when he said, hey, I think this is a problem because when you understand what the mindset of people who are transgender, they don't think of themselves as a man. They're just going to say, well, I'm not competing in that category. I'm just going to go compete. So it doesn't solve the problem. Now, on the subject of the
So
appeals
without it being a policy, you already decided that it's not going to solve a problem?
it's not going to
Thank
solve
you.
the problem.
That's okay.
On the appeals process itself, the way that it's worded, it's not, no, it's clearly, just like Director Hickman said at the beginning of the meeting, the way it's worded is very careful. It does not say that it's a requirement. It just puts the possibility out there. And I'll just mention that I'm not sure how much in love with the idea I am, but I'll just give you some examples of where this has worked. And we've seen it recently. It worked in the Olympics because our transgender swimmer was not allowed to swim in the Olympics. That's one example. It also worked in the International Boxing Federation because they didn't allow the person with XX chromosomes to compete against. Now that failed when it went to the International Olympic Committee, but those are two examples of where that kind of thing can work. And that's all this is about, because there could be situations that arise that are there are a very small number of individuals that have medical conditions that we can't really even perceive of. And so that's why that's there.
The examples you gave are actually those rare medical conditions.
They're very rare.
Those were not, IVA, boxing, you just said, that athlete actually has a rare genetic condition.
That's right.
That's not transgender. And
Right.
this policy that we're trying to change, we have to keep in mind that it's exactly for gender identity participation. So while you may have exemptions for the rare genetic disorders, and I would definitely agree with that, I do not agree, you read that, either I don't know my English, but when I'm reading that appeals process, again, it's not a required component of it, and we have districts that are saying, we do not, girls' sports is only for those that are female at birth, and not even assigned, I don't like that word, female at birth.
I don't like it either.
And they have suggested a third category, and that's okay, you don't agree with that, I'm just stating their amendment. They're very clear with what they want, and they're not getting lawsuits on that. They would be, because we're saying that we're breaking the law, but we're making that assumption, like, is
We're
that?
not saying
No,
that
we're
we are
not saying
breaking
that
the
at all.
law.
I'm not conceding that
That is
at all.
not what we're saying.
No.
What we are saying is that if we propose something to the
Mm-hmm.
WIAA that is against the law, that the WIAA is going to say,
So you
no,
just said that's against the law.
In
Doesn't
their
the law
opinion.
apply
No, I did not.
equally? You just said.
I didn't.
You just said
I
that if
didn't.
we
I did not.
If we submit something that is against the law to WIAA, that they will not take it.
That's
So
right.
do you mean that the Eastmont district, what they have submitted, transgender category, and saying that the female sports is only for females at birth, is that against the law then?
I'm not saying anything's against the law. What I'm saying to you is that if you submit something to the WIAA that they believe is against the law,
They believe it.
they're just going to throw it out, as they've
Right.
already said they would do.
So do you stop standing up for protecting girls then?
See, and there you go again. That's exactly what I was saying earlier. I am here to fight against this nonsense because you disagree on this procedural thing. You say I'm not standing up for girls, and I think that's puerile nonsense.
I did not say that you're not standing up for girls' sports. I'm talking about the appeals process specifically.
But what if we don't
That's-
agree with how
that's
it,
my thing.
what if we don't agree with your specific way of how it has to be?
Well, I'm not saying it's my specific way. I'm talking about the appeals process that is already somebody's specific way that has been put in there. I'm talking about you have an appeals process that is contradicting your statement up there that says female sports should only be for females assigned at birth, and then you go in with the overview, and then you have appeals process saying that it should be looked into and considered into for males,
Here's
for
the thing.
students, male.
All right, here's the deal. We have a big
At birth.
gaping wound that we're trying to fix, and we're arguing about the color of the Band-Aid.
No, that's not it.
That's exactly it. And that's not helpful to this discussion. It's not helpful to how we work as a board.
Okay, that's
It's
what
not
you
helpful
think.
for community relations
It's
either.
not helpful
When
for
you-
community
When
relations.
you paint with such a broad brush, thinking and demonizing the board, calling us placeholders.
I did not tell that you are placeholders.
I have
do have my own.
screenshots, and if you'd like, I can pull them all up, but there's no boogeyman.
I did
Director
not
Brar,
say
no
there's a
boogeyman.
boogeyman. I did
So,
not say
I-
that.
Okay, I'm gonna reel it back in.
Thank you.
Because that's my job.
Thank
And
you.
I'm
I'm
actually,
gonna request President Hickman to address the community comments. I'm thankful for that. I do have some updates that I'd like to provide, and I'd like to request the opportunity to do that.
absolutely.
This wasn't planned, even though I wrote it out.
Yeah, look at that.
First, I want to thank the board for their work. It's accurate that they are working hard to make a change that most people recognize is needed. I have not interacted with anybody in my work that doesn't agree that a change has to happen. What happens isn't working, and so there is work that's taking place to make a change. This is important work, and has and will continue to be done in professional and respectful manner. I want to provide a summary. There are two proposed amendments being submitted to WIA for consideration. WIA has an amendment proposal process requiring an originating school and 4 supporting schools. These proposals are typically done by school athletic directors and school principals. However, given the complexities and the sensitivities of this topic, it was and is more reasonable to have this done by superintendents. Following the board meeting on June 20th, I was directed to work within the WI amendment proposal process by the board. They had this discussion that you just heard. And they signed a resolution to direct me to work within the amendment process. Following the board meeting, I worked closely with Director Brar, and she was extremely helpful and is knowledgeable. She's very knowledgeable on this topic. I also reached out for multiple conversations with the executive director and staff of WIA. I also conversed with our legal counsel multiple times. I did my own research and ultimately, in collaboration with other superintendents, determined that the best chance we'd have for changing things was bringing together a collaborative group of superintendents in the state of Washington from across the state. Director Brar was also helpful in accomplishing such a large group as a result of her connections. Here's how I presented the development of the superintendent's group, the invitation, if you will, following the passing of the June 20 resolution directing me to submit an amendment. I sent out a statement of interest to superintendents, and it was fairness and integrity in girls' sports while protecting the rights and honoring the dignity of transgender athletes. I included a purpose for our meetings. bring together superintendents from across the state to discuss WIA's eligibility policy that states all students have the opportunity to participate in WIA athletic and or activities in a manner that is consistent with their gender identity. This is a very complicated topic and of high interest to many communities and school boards across the state. These calls allow superintendents to collaborate and explore steps that could be taken to ensure an equitable playing field for all students and teams while also protecting each and every competitor. That's what I shared. So we've had 21 superintendents from across the state. 3 Zoom meetings across the last month and a half. Out of that, Lynden is the originating school of an amendment restricting girls' sports to only student athletes assigned female at birth. 12 other schools have signed on as supporting schools. The possibility of an exception, or the appeals, did evolve. And yes, it was first generated by me as I studied the IOC and I looked at what NCAA was doing and trying to figure out how might there be an exception when there is a medical extreme circumstance where an individual does not have a competitive advantage, because that's what I heard was one of the issues. And so the possibility of exceptions and appeals are included as part of the support documentation. They are not required conditions of the proposal, nor recommendations of this board. Possibility of exceptions are included and mentioned as a result of the work I did with those 21 other superintendents from across the state in the development of the proposals. Testosterone came out. I was asked publicly by KGMI. I don't know who's heard that. I personally said I'm not for testing of athletes. I felt it could create challenges. At the same time, I didn't want to close doors that would bring people to the table and work towards solutions that would work. There are students with complex medical circumstances, including in schools, of the superintendents that are on those calls. They are not people that are looking to cheat. All states and organizations representing every level of athletic competition are dealing with these complexities in varying ways. So Lynden's the originating school of one of the amendment proposals. Lynden was prepared, those calls, we were going to do both of them. And Kush helped draft the other one. But during that process, there was another person in Eastern Washington who had a connection with the Eastmont School District Superintendent. And the Eastmont School Board said, we are going to be the originating school of the amendment that creates a separate category for transgender athlete. I reached out to Dr. Berg and I told her Lynden would be a supporting school. Now, I was doing this work. I knew that the board, I heard their discussion on June 20. I knew some directors probably didn't agree with some of those different things. But the reality of it is that they directed me to do that work, to move the discussion forward, and that is the work that I moved forward to do. Director Brar was instrumental in drafting and working with colleagues across the state. She shared freely with me, and up until a few weeks ago, this would have been a second amendment submitted by Lynden as an originating school. So Lynden's originating school of one, Eastmont's originating school of the other. These are courageous school districts that are going out and communicating that we care deeply about all children, but something has to change.
Yep. Because
most people we realize that it isn't going to work if it continues. It's going to put transgender student athletes in situations like they were in that's unfair to them, and it's going to impact the integrity of sports. And that is the conversations that superintendents are having. That's the conversations that I'm having with WIA. WIA and myself, we understand what the legal circumstances are. And it's not a threat like, oh, don't do it because it's legal. No, it will stop the change from happening if we don't get the change at the legislative level. So this work has been rewarding and has offered a lot of personal and professional growth. I think organizing and facilitating the Zoom calls with superintendents from across the state has been most helpful and led to additional opportunities to collaborate. Dr. Berg of Eastmont and I are scheduled to present to superintendents of the Small Schools Center on October 7. Another member of the group has been meeting is part of WIA's Superintendent Advisory Group and has been a key communicator with WIA and the 12-member Superintendent Board that is working toward change. There is general agreement among superintendents that the legislature must act to change the Washington law against discrimination for either of the amendment proposals to be approved and implemented. Given the experience of transgender athletes in sporting competitions and the increasing impact on intended protections of Title IX, it is my observation that leadership of WIA would also like to see a change to what is currently in place. It is also my prediction that if we can help lawmakers to understand the context and the full complexities of this particular issue and get a well-crafted bill far enough along in the upcoming legislative session to allow for public testimony, there is a path for change. A change that ultimately protects the integrity of girls' sports while also honoring the dignity of all student athletes. It is our friends in Eastern Washington that are meeting and pressing legislators to actually craft the bills. I believe this issue is an adult issue and deserves people like myself, other superintendents, the board of directors, citizens to be part of the solution. I want to thank the board of directors for giving me the opportunity. I hope you have found me to be open and forthcoming with the information in a timely manner. And as always, I'm open to be accessed for questions, feedback, and if there are needs for clarification. This is also true for the citizens of Lynden. If after talking with or hearing from citizens on any topics, please don't hesitate to encourage them to reach out. I know a lot of the people here too. No one reached out and asked me questions about this either. Have them reach out. I'm happy to go over it with them. So I can understand their experience and position on things and for them to develop a greater understanding of an issue by hearing things from my perspective. Please share my cell number with folks who are interested in the Lynden School District. We have a lot of important work to do, and our community's children are worth it.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Just one clarifying question from your statement. You said that you developed the amendment with those 21 superintendents. Did you already have the amendment when you went into the Zoom meeting with them to share, or did you develop it with them?
We had both versions in the first meeting that we went in with them, and myself with two other superintendents worked to draft that before going in.
Before going into
Yeah.
the meeting, so it wasn't really developed with the other superintendents.
Director
Thank you.
Brar, with all due respect, it was developed collaboratively with other superintendents, and I've been working closely with those superintendents.
When I ask develop, I'm saying who wrote this amendment is my question. Before you went into that meeting. Zoom
Myself
meeting,
and two other superintendents.
and two other superintendents. Now, do you mind sharing?
No, I don't. I don't want to share.
Director Brar, have you ever written a policy or an amendment before? Do you understand that there's a process that you don't just come in with a document? You don't just go into a meeting from scratch and say, hey, let's figure this out.
I
The 12 of
understand.
us, there's something that needs to be presented with any policy and procedure, and then you workshop that together, similar to what we do on this board almost every meeting. So I know you're looking for a gotcha moment. I would love to get that too.
Oh, no,
But,
I'm not.
again,
There's a
we're not looking for a
difference
boogeyman.
between when you say you developed it with those superintendents, and there's a difference when you went in already with that
Okay,
amendment.
that's your subjective opinion, and you're going on semantics now.
Yeah,
So
and I'm going to move us forward.
Yeah,
because
President
we
Hickman, can we move
have
forward?
some
Thank
things
you.
ahead of us. And so I'm going to move right into teaching and learning.
One question, I don't know how to reach out to you guys if I wanted to ask you a question, and that's why I come to these meetings, because it's the only way I know how to make my voice heard. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yes, so if
I
you
think
go on,
everybody here might like to know what it is.
perfect. Lynden School District, go to the administration building, and you'll find all of our information under school board.
Lynden School District online,
Yeah.
their website?
Yeah.
On the website.
Thank you.
I also have an office here and a receptionist, and I'm available to the citizens.
Okay, but if a person wants to send an email, you go to the
Yeah.
school district.
Right, and our emails are on there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So teaching and learning, school improvement plans for Lynden Academy and Linden's high school.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for coming. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Scott.
Was it last good week?
Hello.
Good evening.
We had hoped to have 3 with us tonight, but one had a family emergency. So I don't know if you remember me, I'm Ellie Mink, I'm the principal of Lynden Academy. This is Scott Lynden, one of our amazing teachers. We're lucky to have him after a football practice. So we're going to talk about our school improvement plan. One of the things that we're going to share about tonight, you're going to recognize that it's something that we worked on from last year. And one of them is new, and so Scott will share about our new thing in a moment here. Let's see if I can. Yeah, I did it. Okay, so I'm technology challenged. I wanted to talk really quickly about, here's our school district strategic plan. It's about all the students graduating, college and career ready, citizenship ready, and that we would have high quality instruction and learning, but not just for every student in every classroom and every day, I think also in every home. Because we're the homeschool partnership, so I feel like we should have that excellent instruction even in our homes. So we're tying our first strategic plan to the second priority, and this one it talks about the SELS 5D, but I'm going to tie it down at the bottom here to the Universal Design for Learning Framework. As a staff, we've been working on this. It's our second year, and we decided that we wanted to tie it to speaking and listening, which is really different from us as a staff. We, as a whole school district, really want to work on this in every class, and we've decided to do it for our secondary students, and this is what I'm going to have Scott share about.
Okay, so when Ellie first pitched this to me, it's something that we do in class all the time as teachers, right? We always have turn and talk and things like that. We try to cultivate conversations between our students, which is very important. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take it kind of to the next level. And so what we're going to do is facilitate academic conversations through targeted vocabulary. So that's going to be our academic component of this. And you know, in doing a little bit of research and, you know, you kind of dig, and I'm a big speaking and listening person, especially the listening part now in this day and age when a lot of our students, they have access to podcasts, long-form conversations and things like that, right? And so you can absorb a lot of information that way. And so it's not that we want to put reading in bed, right? We want to roll those things in too, and writing and things like that. But we also want to facilitate these conversations on a number of different levels. Obviously the academic part, but also like it's about 50% of workers in the workplace have less burnout if they feel like they're heard, right? And so there's also a social emotional component because we can get these shy kids out of their shells. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And so facilitating these conversations, it really loosens up your classroom. And what you find naturally is that the shy kids are now more willing to speak up because they have a lot to say and they have a lot to share with the class. Other kids are going to learn a lot from them. But, you know, and I know this because I read the kids' writing. And the one example I use is I have this gal in my class, and she's an ELL gal, and she doesn't say a word. But when she hands in her work, it is the most brilliant, deep, I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. So, she's my example is if we can get her to share that verbally with the other students, that can really go a long way. A, educating everybody. B, cultivating social emotional relationships, and just kind of helping her, achieve a level of confidence, right? And so we like all those things. So why do it? I kind of explain that, and then we want to foster meaningful relationships, and then how. So basically, this is an imperfect science. This is something that we're kind of navigating as we go, right? And so what do? You get into the trenches. I'm not a big theories guy. I just like to try it, right? And so what I did was I had my kids start off with this in a non-academic form. So like I would just give them some fun prompts, right? Like, if you could build your ultimate dream room, what would that look like? And then you get them chatting and talking. And I start with the kids and let them pick their groups. But ultimately, what you want to do is you want to mix them, and you want each kid to know every other kid in the classroom. And that way, you have a real culture, a real environment. Those kids step inside that classroom, and not only do they feel comfortable, but they may even actually look forward to coming to class and meeting some new kids or whatever. So, introduce academic content-based vocabularies, and then let the kids know why. So I was real transparent with my students, like, hey, this is our student growth goal, this is our school improvement goal, and this is how we want to attack this. And so the tricky part for me was, how do you assess a conversation, right? It's easy to look at an essay or a written work or a test or whatever, and make an assessment of that. And so that's the work that I did initially with my PLC. So I met with the other high school teachers, and we're a small group. There's only 4 teachers, right? And so it's 1 teacher per content area. And so I gathered some stuff from them, which was invaluable, and we talked shop, and we got a plan together. So basically the assessment method is something that we're going to continue to talk about. We do have a rubric that we've developed. However, I operate on more simple terms. I like to start off simple. And we can get to the rubric eventually, but basically what we started is step 1 of this, here we are in early October, is to have a bank of vocabulary words. And for any given lesson, we simply just give those vocabulary words to the kids and then we have them self-assess. Okay, so if I say that word, I check it off my list. If I hear that word, I check it off my list. Mm-hmm. We also have what's called talk moves. And I don't know if any of you have ever heard about this, but it's basically just strategies to keep the conversation going, right? So for kids to ask clarifying questions, to elaborate, and again, to get them out of their shells. So the biggest X factor here is going to be how to accurately assess this, because we want 15% growth on our academic conversations with targeted vocabulary, right? And so that it's something that I'm passionate about, just because as much as the academic, there's a huge social emotional component here too, and it makes you feel good. I mean, every kid in your class is willing to share and talk. Like that's a proud teacher moment. So we started with the small group discussions, and then we're gonna try to mix them up, and then we want to evolve that. Eventually, the end game, we want to evolve that into complete student ownership, right? And your goal as a teacher every year is you have a new group of students. You want to, at first, you're going to do a lot of the talking, and then as the year goes on, you step back more and more and more, and then you get to see the joy of watching these kids operate independently. And by the time we get to April or May or June, now they take control of the class, and that is powerful. So basically, that's it.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
You bet.
I think Dr. VanderYacht is laughing at me back there, but I don't know why. No, she's got it. I'm just teasing you, all right? Everything's going to be all right. I shouldn't have said that. I don't know what's going on. What is in this water? What? Keep it to the... Sorry, what was your name again?
Scott Notable.
Scott Notable. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I should know you because I think you taught some of my kids when they were in Lynden Academy.
I know the name.
Way back when Victoria was my daughter.
That's the one I
Okay,
know.
yeah. Sorry, it was a long time ago. So you're explaining a 15% increase, but do I hear you correctly that you don't quite have the measurement? You know you want to increase, but you don't quite know what that number is that you are going to present maybe later. Is that correct?
This is something that us as a PLC, as a high school team, that we really need to lock in, right?
Okay.
Because now it's quantified, otherwise it's all just poof in the air and it's all theory and stuff like that,
We
so.
want real data,
We
so
need data.
we're in that creating and implementing a rubric, so we're just in the
Okay.
beginning
Great,
stages
okay.
Got it.
of that.
Perfect, all right,
So in
thank
the
you.
spring, I'm hoping to have some data, and who knows if we'll get to 15%, but I'm excited about it.
That's
Well,
great.
and it gives us a target, right, in
Sure.
that game, right? And so that gives you something to shoot for. And then, we'll do spot checks along the way. And hey, are we at, once we get this thing dialed in, are we at 5%? Are we at 7%? Do we need to think of some other strategies? Like, what might that look like, right? So-
Yeah, okay, thank you.
My question's simple. EEL, what does that stand for?
EEL?
I thought you said EEL.
Oh,
ELL,
ELL.
yes.
So we actually have a small population of ELL, so it's mostly like Russian Ukrainian population. We don't have a very high, we don't have a high Hispanic population, but those kids have just like any other kid, they have a wealth to contribute, and so we always want to meet every kid where they're at, right? And I mean, part of academic conversations is to help, just like any kid, develop their vernacular and become, more fluent and things like that. And it's just, you want to meet every kid where they're at and try to help them the best you can.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
So is ELL sort of synonymous with MLL then?
It's
Okay.
an older version.
Oh, I see, okay.
Oh, yeah, the archaic.
Hasn't made it into the classroom yet.
Awesome for the win, right? The Ehlers.
So the exciting part about this work is it is new and fresh. We're just creating and implementing it. I love walking into the chemistry room and seeing it happening there, in the language arts room, in American literature. It looks very different, but they're working towards the same goal together, which is fun. So it's not just a goal in our school improvement plan, it's also part of their PLC work, and our late starts on Friday mornings. And it also, some of them are using it for their student growth goals, so it just kind of fills their year and makes a real big push towards something that's positive for our students. So now I'm going to get to the second goal, and Vanessa's not here to share, but I'm going to share for her, and hopefully not mess it up too badly. The second goal is actually tied to two strategic priorities from the district. One is our multi-tiered system of support, because it is, again, our math win that we did last year, and that is that second dip through. And then it also is tied to the professional collaboration, because about 75% of our staff, anyone who's not on the high school team, is working towards this math goal. So our math goal is, let's see if I can get to the right one here, is from last year, our building leadership team, when we voted last spring, we decided to continue our math goal, and that's our math what I need goal for K-8. And we're looking again for a big move. Did I go too far? I went too far, sorry. We're looking for a big change in how many students are at or above grade level. And so we're going to be tracking them. This is my data from last spring. We're going to be tracking them so the kids that were K1 last year, now they'll be in second grade, and we're going to keep with those same grade cohorts to just see over time how that improves their education. We have all the kindergarten to 8th grade math teachers working together, and because most of our teachers are teaching multiple grades and have more than one cert, they are definitely all working together on this. And we're going to look for a 5% increase. Vanessa said to me today, Ellie, why not 10%? And I said, well, I could change that to 10, but I would be really thrilled just with 5. Last year we had some kids that, I don't know if you can see it, but some kids had, some grade groups had a 35% increase, and some didn't have an increase at all. So I would love for everyone to just have an increase, and we'll see how that works. And how we're working on this is we're using data like our stars and walk hits, but we also, when I was interviewing Vanessa today, they really had used their classroom-based assessments more this year, because now they know what they did last year. They're not crafting a new program, they're plugging into last year's program and perfecting it. And so they already had developed a way to split their students, so they'll take 2 grades and split them into 3 or 4 different groups, a below grade level, at grade level, above grade level, and then they have different teachers that come in, and we use additional staffing support during that planning time, and they support the same core lesson, but at different levels. This year, we are also piloting a new software that's it's new for our building. It's called IXL, so that we can make sure that math work is happening at home as well as in the building. We're just connecting home and building. And then we also are going to have some professional development from the Educational Service District with a gal, and her name is, I think, Tina Mott. She has a special math program she's going to come work with us on. So we're pouring time and energy into this, and we had, I feel like, great success last year, but I'm looking for even more this year. I'm just excited.
Awesome. That's great.
There we go. And there's our kiddos on their first field trip this fall, when the weather was really pretty nice. Pretty beautiful.
Check out the backpack.
That's my favorite part is the geese.
Sunshine on it?
The wonderful part of this is going to a park. There's not a lot of stress as far as we have to go do this thing. There's more kind of connection time, and we hear a lot of conversations between parents about curriculum and, oh, I'm new to homeschooling, what's working for you? And just those connections and play dates made and rich conversations, and so we just really prize those connection times.
Where was that park at?
That's Hovander. Yeah,
It's in Ferndale.
in Ferndale. It's a beautiful park.
That is a beautiful.
Can go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask a couple quick questions, Ellie. So what's the difference between a CBA and a rubric? Is that,
Okay, so the CBA is a classroom-based assessment.
okay,
That is a teacher assessing their students. The rubric would be more what they're actually using to assess.
okay, it's the tool, the rubric's the
It's the
tool.
tool.
Okay, got it.
And so for Scott's group,
Yes.
they're going to have a tool just about students reflecting or about teachers reflecting on how much conversation goes on if it was academic.
Okay.
If it was educational, yeah.
Got it. Do you like, what do you think of the IXL? Is that the best?
I have never tried it. This is our first year.
Okay.
We had Freckle last year.
Okay.
We're trying to find something that's more parent-friendly.
Yes.
And it's a little bit more colorful. And so I said to the teachers, let's try it for a year and see what we think of it.
Okay.
See how it works, see how many minutes kids are logging, if they're actually, getting better scores.
IXL is for math.
Well,
That's
we
math.
have it for math and language arts. For
Language
kindergarten
too.
through eighth
Oh,
grade,
okay.
yeah. But we're mostly really focused on the math part. They just threw in the language arts.
Got it,
So
okay.
We'll take it.
Are you done?
No, I was just gonna say my wife
Go
could
on.
probably give you some insight on that.
So
I
let
think she,
me know what you
yes. Yeah, no, thanks.
I have a quick question, Ellie. Do students at Lynden Academy, do they also take the state standardized test as our other?
Yes, we do, yes.
You do, okay.
We do all of them. We do district-based, this assessment. And we also do the 𝒒𝒊𝒏𝒈 assessment.
Right,
And we have a variety of other things that we send high schoolers to raise their ranking.
right, good. And then with that assessment, do we also compare like our own, right, you have the rubrics and then there's data that's entered in there, right? And then we have our goals. Do we compare that with the national, not the state standardized test?
Yeah, we do
And then
look
kind
at
of
that,
see,
yeah.
how it
I
relates?
find when teaching and trying to improve things, I want quick data in the minute, and then, reassess what I'm teaching and then go. The one problem with using the Smarter Balance, is that it's at the end of the year, so it's just kind of the final thing. And then we wait a really long time to get the results, so we can't quick change our teaching. But we do look at it, because I think it's an important mark, but it's not something that the teachers generally use to teach.
Yeah, we use more stars for that,
Yeah.
right, for that
It's
instant.
just
data
quick, and then we go,
Right.
we're all struggling in
Yeah.
fractions, let's redo it's quicker.
Yeah.
But when looking at goals, as far as like, we have this goal, do you also take that data point into
Actually, we
consideration?
do.
Like all of
Yeah.
those, all of the
Yeah.
testing, you kind of combine all of that,
Oh, yeah.
and then you do,
Which is why we're doing math what I need instead of
Right.
reading, because homeschoolers at our school and traditionally across the nation struggle with math.
right,
And we know that that's the area, and so we're gonna hit it hard and we're gonna keep
And then you
going, 'cause
focus
we
on
know
that,
they're
right.
gonna get it. Yeah.
right. Okay, that's good, thank you.
Can I ask, so this matrix of data, which I need to get my binoculars out.
Well, I can send you the one from spring, it was big in spring, I just put it as an example.
Yeah.
That is tiny.
I'm just teasing you. So for for fifth, sixth, and sixth, seventh, there was a dip, there was a decline, yes?
Yeah,
In
we
that
talked
number.
about that, and I think that's something important to talk about for our school. As our fifth graders go into sixth grade, they have been, the fifth graders are homeschooled at home most of the week and have one really neat enrichment and core day in the building. When you come into sixth grade, you're with CERT teachers 2.5 days a week. And it's a big emotional change for them, and we often see dips and things until they kind of get their ground under them and then things get better.
I see, Okay.
But we are actually going to address that, and that's one of the reasons for IXL. And then we also, last year, after looking at our middle school data, we traded to a new curriculum. We're actually back to a curriculum we previously used, a math curriculum and book rigor.
And then my second question is that cohort, that 5, 6, and 6, 7, is that the cohort that sort of came into school around COVID? Do you think there's a relationship there or not?
That's an interesting thought. I hadn't even thought of that. Well, yeah, if we count back,
Yeah.
they might have been very young or just coming in.
Do you think
Yeah,
there's
I
any?
never thought of that. That's a good point.
Okay, I was just curious because that seems to be the
I was thinking, oh,
spot
that's the
there.
old history originally into the fresh.
It feels like it.
We all want to forget.
Yes, it feels like just yesterday sometimes, but other times it feels, okay. Yeah, okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's good.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
Okay, introduced. Ian Freeman, principal at Lynden High School.
I'm David Kish, one of the assistant principals at Lynden High School.
And Nicolette Rinker, other assistant principal at Lynden High School.
And we don't have quite the same energy as Nodi, but not many people do.
No.
So, what you're going to hear tonight from Lynden High School is actually going to have a lot of similarities to what you just heard from Lynden Academy, which is really a nice feature of this year's collaborative planning that we did over the summer.
Wonderful.
So you're familiar with our strategic plan and mission and vision. That's actually also our high school mission and vision. So we hold that same specific mission and vision for the high school. So an overarching concept that we're using for our school improvement goals this year is to build everything with MTSS in mind. And so MTSS, I think I explained last spring, is a way of approaching the systems in our school so that we do our first best attempt at everything that we do with all students at the Tier 1 level. And then we develop systems that look at data and respond to individual student needs and that are able to be responsive but also flexible. So the goal is to be able to provide students what they need when we notice that they're not performing the way that we were hoping they're performing, or they're not responding to things positively when we hope that they're responding positively, all those sorts of things. And so everything can be done with an MTSS kind of vision to it, a structure to it. It just takes looking at what are the things that you're hoping students will demonstrate, and then developing next steps if they're not making the progress that you're looking for. This image here kind of highlights the fact that there's an academic approach, or it can work for academics, it can work for social emotional, it can work for behavioral. And so that's going to be the 3 goals that we have. So our attempt this year was to take 3 very specific areas under each one of those 3 and develop MTSS systems as kind of a first attempt of how we design systems for our school, but just in those 3 very specific places. So, first one is speaking. Just like Lynden Academy, we nested this goal under the strategic priority for the district number 2 about effective teaching practices. And our goal is very specific to multilingual learners, but I'll talk in just a moment about how we are actually implementing school-wide, but the thing that we'll be measuring is looking at multilingual learners and where that came from. So by spring of 2025, all multilingual learners will grow by 1 or more levels in speaking English, measured by the WASDA assessment. And so I think actually after the last presentation, we learned a little bit about the WASDA in September when Susie Cartagena and Lisa Valley came. The WASDA has 6 levels, entering, beginning, developing, expanding, bridging, reaching. And so one of the things that we did in order to kind of narrow this down a little bit more is we clustered the first 3 levels as kind of a low proficiency and the next 3 levels as a high proficiency. And then we looked at the data for our multilingual learners. And this was actually done at a secondary level at our AVID professional development this summer. And I'll give you kind of the summary table, but we did this longhand with all of those areas, and some interesting trends were noticeable. So this is our 2024 WIDA data. What you're looking at here, so in 9th grade, we'll just take 9th grade up first. 9th grade, there were 15 students that performed in that low area for listening, and 10 students who performed at that high area for listening. Does that follow where I'm? Okay. So now you can see through all of the data there, and I kind of highlighted it for you, that at all grade levels, there were way more students performing at the low level in speaking than at the high level. So in 9th grade, 24 students performed at the low level, or low proficiency in speaking, 1 student performed at high. In 10th grade, 28 performed within those first 3, the bands that I had here, entering, beginning, developing. And 0 performed at the high. 11th grade, 19 performed at the low, 2 performed at the high. 12th grade, 21 performed at the low, 0 performed at the high. It's very consistent that the area that students were struggling the most in was speaking. A lot more balance in listening, reading, and writing.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
this is a spot check, like, this is not following the same cohort. This is this
No,
year.
these are all of the ML
Okay,
students
okay,
from,
okay.
yeah, these are all the ML students from last year.
Okay.
So, in fact, one of the most striking and kind of gut punch things for us was thinking about those 12th graders, and that those are students who graduated. And those 21 students who performed at low proficiency in speaking English did graduate, and they're going to now go out and try to present themselves for jobs and college applications and in classes and in the community. And basically, we need to do better. We want our students to be able to present themselves verbally, because we know that is how the society kind of judges us, right? The people that we're most confident in, the people that we admire the most, are able to present themselves verbally.
Can I just add really quick too, that another part of that too is the safety issue for them, that as they go out into the world, like advocating for yourself in like a healthcare situation or another situation where you might just need to have that basic life skills, super important.
I have a question on that, and I don't know if you know that, if you may not have the answer to how many of those 21 spent all 4 years at Lynden versus how many came into the district, either in their senior year or I guess the question.
It includes both of those populations.
Yeah.
So these are all of our ML students, and
Okay.
and some of them are newcomers. Some of them, this was their first year
Right.
in the U.S., and some of them are long-term Lynden
Okay.
School District students.
So it's all.
There are students in that that low 12th grade cell that started in Lynden in kindergarten.
Okay,
And there are also students in that group of
Okay.
21 that just came this year.
got it. All right. Thanks.
So this is the data, but what's the goal?
The goal is to increase for every ML student to push them up one level. So if the student tested last spring at level 2 beginning, then this coming spring, we want them to be performing at level 3
Okay,
developing more
okay.
better.
So, like those 21 seniors, they were all either in 1, 2, or 3, and if they were returning next year, we'd want them all to shift up by 1 whole.
Okay.
Not just every kid be, proficient.
Yeah, that's what I thought, and I was going to ask that question, because the chart of data isn't really sort of at the right grain to measure that, because.
Correct. This chart is not going to be at the, I'm sorry.
The next one, I mean.
Yeah. This chart is not going to be at the right grade level, that's correct.
Yeah,
This is
okay,
just where we noticed a trend that led us to create the goal that we thought
Okay.
was most.
okay, got it, all right, thank you.
So, while we have this goal specifically for our ML students, we believe that all students need to gain the skills of oral presentation and justification. We're kind of naming it specifically oral presentation and justification because for our ML students, it is speaking. We demoed, when we saw this data, Susie actually helped us go through the assessment and actually see what the assessment looks like and how it works for students. There's some very specific things that maybe technologically are a little bit challenging and do influence the data a little bit, but there's also some very specific things that we could work on with students to help them perform better in speaking English. Taking it to the next level for the whole school is that oral presentation and justification is something that should happen in every classroom. So students should be able to present their ideas and also support those ideas. And we heard some very passionate dialogue tonight. In order to engage in passionate dialogue like that, you need to be able to present yourself verbally. So we believe that that's important for all students. All graduates need the skill of oral presentation and justification to be college career and citizenship ready. So wrapping it back to our mission. And so our next step, we have some teacher professional development coming up on Monday. We already introduced this goal at our last professional development in August. At this upcoming one, we're going to do some self-assessment from teachers that's going to take a look at having them self-reflect on how much they actually utilize these areas in their instruction intentionally, and then starting to develop some ways of doing it more. One of the things that we typically go first and don't have an opportunity to hear some of the other ideas from the schools, but I really liked what Nodi was talking about with introducing the academic vocabulary and then giving students the opportunity to check off when they use that. That was a great strategy, and so we're going to work with teachers to develop more and have them implementing those throughout the year. And then gradual increase in application in the classroom. So we can't throw students in there in September and expect them to present at a high proficiency level, but introducing activities throughout the school year that get them developing these skills so that by the end of the school year, they are able to do that oral presentation in a way that is something that they can be proud of and that we want to see. So that is goal number 1.
So the second goal, we're looking at the strategic priority number 1 in culture of belonging. And this fits into students feeling welcome and feeling like they are a part of the community inside the classroom. Okay, so here's our second one. All students will be given opportunities to provide feedback to teachers that inform instruction and increase belonging and learning. Positive student responses to my teachers ask for my feedback about their lessons and instruction will increase from 62 positive responses in September to 80% responses in May 2025. So the data that we're using to inform this goal is, I gave out a survey at the beginning of the year, just thinking about that students engage more with learning. They have more access to content when they feel connected to it. They feel like their voices are heard, and not only heard, but that there's an action that comes from their opinion, like that they feel valued. And so we made a survey, there's just more information about this, more engaged in school activities, have a deeper involvement to the community. And there's one more data piece. There was this Prioritization Institute that did a nationwide study that found that students are 7 times more successful academically when they're able to share their unique perspective and voice in the classroom and school community. So this is part of the survey I gave. It was just 11 questions total. And we noticed the biggest negative areas on number 8 and number 11. And number 11 directly correlates to that Tier 1 goal. My teachers asked for feedback about their lessons and instruction. So we're not saying that students get to have a say in what the instruction is. It's not choosing the curriculum, like, oh, I didn't like that lesson, let's do something different. It's how do I interact with that material? Do I feel like I'm better at group work? Do I feel like that activity was something that I could actually access?
Can I
Is that-
ask a question on that?
You go ahead.
So my teachers ask for feedback about their lessons and instruction. So 2 questions. Is this survey anonymous?
It is.
And then is question 11 answering in the classroom? Are teachers asking, am I understanding that correctly, that they're asking?
Are they trying to seek feedback from students in the classroom, like whether that's through like exit tickets or self-reflection for students, and then actually looking at that and then adjusting their instructional practice based on
You said exit, sorry, I misheard, exit
Like
tickets?
an exit ticket for a student.
What does that mean?
When they leave the classroom, and that lasts like 5-10 minutes of class, it could be like a reflection
I
activity.
see. So
Or it could
okay.
be like, they could ask them like, how did you feel about today's lesson? What did you get from today's lesson? And the kids would give some sort of a response.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
Can I ask, you mentioned there, sorry, let me get back to what you said, because I was listening to what Director Martinez was saying. You were talking about, you said the feedback on the lesson is not related to, oh, I don't like this lesson plan, but more is about, how did the student engage with the lesson? Were they more part of a group activity or something like that?
Yeah, like was the activity focused enough for the student that they felt that they could access it easily?
Yeah.
If they're like UDL focused, that's really where we're.
Okay, you said UDL, I was going to ask you, isn't that sort of the core of UDL? Okay.
So it's like having those kind of choice options for kids on
Yeah.
how do they actually complete the activity, but not necessarily like, well, I don't like this book, or I
Right,
don't like
right.
this essential standard. Well, unfortunately, like that's what we're teaching as a
Yeah.
public school, but we do have different ways we can allow
Yeah.
kids to access material.
I'm glad you clarified that, because at the beginning, I was like, I don't really like this goal, because I was thinking it was more the former,
Yeah.
but you explained it, and now I like it, so.
And Kyle, I don't ever want to call you up. Can you give any real world application to any of this?
I think like last week I had like a reflection for like a lesson that we had over like essay analysis. And I felt like that was really beneficial because I could realize what I was doing and how the teacher felt like she was doing, and then we can work together. So,
Thank you.
just that, and that was in an AP class too. So there's already a lot of motivation for the students.
I wonder, Kyle, though, too, like, just to add on that, do you feel like in every class that you would say that all teachers are looking at how you're accessing content, asking you about it, and then taking your feedback and actually modifying instruction based on your feedback? Does that happen often, or is that rare?
I would say that's rare.
Okay.
Like probably like maybe 1 to 2 classes out of the 6 that I'm in.
Yeah, and we would just like to see that happen in every class, and then for this work to kind of drive PLC work going forward for teachers so they can start coming up with what are the tools that we're using to get feedback. I've heard from some teachers that it's a really vulnerable process to ask kids for feedback. Maybe they don't know how to give it constructively, so you might ask something and then they give you like, well, that was a terrible lesson, and I think you're a horrible teacher, and I'd rather learn from a robot, right? Well, that's not what we're looking for. And so.
But behind that, there is some truth, right? So if you're I'm serious, because if there's certain teachers that need to be better teachers. I need to be a better director, a better father, and so sometimes my son might say, "Dad, that you suck," and I'm like, "Oh, hold on, buddy. What do you mean I suck?" And
Yeah, can we say that constructively?
Yeah,
Where
what
there's
is
room for me to grow too as a professional? Like,
Right.
That's helpful, and I think leading our teachers also into a place where they feel comfortable enough in their classroom environment to take constructive feedback and be vulnerable is part of this.
yeah.
Didn't your son just get some awesome Legos?
He did get out. He would never say I suck. I just got him
why
Legos.
can't
So
I see him saying
Not
that?
after the Legos.
not
He
after
would
Legos.
never
So
say that. Yeah, so we're going to be focusing on intentional instruction and increased opportunities in ASB for students to participate like a school-wide level as well. Focusing on groups of students around school-wide systems, structures, and culture. Last year we did a early warning systems meeting, like a community meeting where parents and kids came in and shared about their perspective at Lynden, and they were really asking for more opportunities to have authentic two-way communication and not just have to wait for us to give things to them, but for them to be able to share their perspectives with us and feel like they were heard as well. So that's a good tier 2, tier 3 MTSS part of this we can implement. And then then we're gonna do the survey again at the end of the year and kind of see where our growth is and hopefully achieve that goal or higher. And then have the teachers use this in PLCs like I mentioned. And also student voice is a huge shift in our 𝒕𝒊𝒄𝒕𝒖𝒓𝒆𝒅 rubric. It's showing up everywhere in there. Teachers really can't get proficient or distinguished if they're not eliciting some sort of family or student feedback in the creation of their goal. So that's a big shift we're talking about with our teachers this year.
So when you have the, sorry, go ahead. When you have the question on the survey, I often participate in decisions about school policies or classroom rules. Can you expound, that's in connection with this ASB. Can you expound on that?
So I would say ASB, but it can also be as simple as something that is tier 1 in the classroom. If you've been in a classroom where the teacher sits down with you the first day, instead of telling you what the classroom rules are, you create norms together where the students have buy-in and they understand how that helps to make the community stronger. That could be part of that creation of rules. And then that community group we ran last year where we're asking parents and students about their feedback about what's happening in our school, how do they feel connected, what kinds of changes would they like to see, what kind of communication would they want. That would be an example.
Just as you guys are having some questions on the interpretation of the questions, though, students will as well, right? They're taking these independently on their own, and so they might interpret that question in one way, thinking, did I have a voice in the tardy policy? Whereas,
Right.
Whereas another student will think about it in terms of, was I part of a norm-making process in my classroom? And so those students might respond differently based on those things. But ultimately, the goal is that in the aggregate, as we get to the end of the year, students will know that they've had a voice in things because it'll be very obvious based on the action steps that we're doing throughout the year. One of the things that I feel like is a little bit of a struggle in Lynden is that our students are so compliant and wonderful that they don't like to give any hard criticism sometimes. Or not even criticism, but sometimes feedback feels like criticism in their mind, right? And so helping students understand that they do have a voice. The superintendent and Mr. 𝒕𝒊𝒄𝒕𝒖𝒓𝒆𝒅 and myself did a student panel it was 2 years ago, and that's another component. That student panel talked about all sorts of topics. We had a topic each month to talk about. It wasn't course specific, it wasn't specific to classrooms, but it was a little bit more around culture and structures, and so that's another thing that we hope to get going again this school year.
I think that's a wonderful idea, what you had said, to be able to create a list of these are the social norms for a classroom, and that even gives teachers the power to say, hey, actually, do you remember we created this together?
And I think a lot of times that happens, I come from a K-8 environment, a lot of my teaching experience prior to this, and I think it's more common in primary schools and in middle schools to see those happen as you're really guiding students towards behavioral norms.
Yeah.
But I think it definitely needs to happen in high school too, just to give them that kind of vested interest. And if you feel connected to where you are, you feel like you belong and people care about you, you show up to school more, you engage more with your academics, and so it's all important.
I had a mentor in high school by the name of 𝒐𝒊𝒏𝒈. He was a English speech teacher, and he told the story. I remember he told the story about how he used to always give out the class rules before every class until he did that for years. This guy was a teacher for years, and until one day he handed out the class rules, and one of the kids said, "I hadn't even thought of that one." And it made him realize that all he was just doing was giving them a list of ways that they could misbehave. Yeah, and so he changed that to what you're talking about, which is great. And in fact, his classroom was one of my favorite classes to go to. Yeah.
So going back to the multi-tiered systems of support, the third goal, which is the one that I'm kind of overseeing at school, really is back to our strategic priority number 1 about safe and supportive learning environments, mainly focused on the social, emotional, and behavioral health of our students. It's related to improving attendance So the goal is that the high school is going to increase the percentage of students who regularly attend school. So that means no more than 1 day absent per month on average, from 82.3% in the previous year to 85% this year through an MTSS approach. Mentioning MTSS again, if you think back, without MTSS, the idea is just imagine a net that has big holes. Some kids get caught, some kids are going to fall through. And MTSS is giving us more of a systematic approach. We're going to do a lot of things for every kid, and that's going to support most kids. And then we're going to recognize through data that there's a small group of kids that just need a little nudge. Maybe a reach out from a teacher, maybe it's a note home or a letter, something that's going to capture that kid, some little bit of additional attention. And then there are going to be a group of students that just need intense wraparound supports. We're Family Resource Center with Margaret here at the district office, something a little bit more, maybe some outside counseling, maybe our in-house counselors. They're going to need some more support. So that's kind of what MTSS is looking at. So the data that came from this first was from our teaching staff. We have goals about speaking, we have goals about student agency. That can't happen if students are in class. And I think COVID and learning online gave this misnomer that you can learn by being at home versus what you learn in a class. There is a curriculum, but there's also conversations. I mean, Nodi, I didn't realize Scott was called Nodi, but Nodi brought it up, that idea of just having those authentic conversations that kids are having and getting the quiet kid to speak up. That can't happen if you're at home behind a computer. And so the teacher's like, we need kids here, and there's kids missing way too much school. So we did look at the national data. U.S. average chronic absenteeism, which is 2 or more days per month on average, 18 total over the school year. So we have 180 days roughly as a school. That would be missing 10% of your school year, so 18 days. So U.S. average, it went from 15% to 26%. We had that same 11% growth rate from 8 to 19 from pre-COVID to post-COVID. So then I dug into last year's data specifically, and the number of students that had 0 to 9 absences, again, that's around 1 per month, was 82.3%, or about 733 kids. The ones that kind of were about 1.5 days per month were 12.8%, so 114 students. And then those that would be considered, by the definition, chronically absent was 4.9% or 44 students. So what we want to do is increase that first group, that 0 to 9, but what will happen is that the other two groups will also decrease. We want our chronic absenteeism to go down, and obviously we just want more of that to kind of flow up to that upper, the 0 to 9 group.
Here's a question: if a student drops out, does that 18 plus, that 4.9%, do they still get factored into this number, or do they just take off?
Yeah. The hard thing about the high school is we have lots of nuances like that. Students who drop out, students who go to BTC for their impact program, students that go to Running Start. And all those can actually skew our data because they might not be on campus very often or not at all. And so I really do have to kind of pick through it. So when we looked at, generally as a student was there for at least 50% of the year. So yeah, there are kids that might have been there only for a few days, didn't show up for 5 days straight. So they missed 100% of their days, but once they realize the impact program is more important for them, we don't want to include them in our data. So
Correct me if I'm wrong, but do we still have a system in place where we meet with students and parents if they're truancy? Right? Is that the correct term?
Yeah, and so I'm going to get to that.
Perfect. Oh,
yeah.
Look at that.
But before you move on, can I ask you a question? Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, what?
No.
Are you making fun of me again?
No, Danny was one of our community members that served on our
truancy board.
accountability board for attendance.
Back in the day.
I don't mean to nitpick, but I feel like I misunderstand the data. Shouldn't the 19% be a mirror image of shouldn't that figure at the end of the top red arrow, the 19%, and the figure of 0 to 9, shouldn't that add up to 100%, or do I misunderstand the data?
The one on the left is our school district.
It's the whole district. Okay, all right.
That's looking at our historical data. The one on the right, as I said, well, let's just look at what last year was like. So as a school, our students were obviously a little bit better than that. But that was the data at OSDI reported. Now, again, the high school's data is complicated. I'm actually going through it with and Ian knows I get frustrated with this because I literally have to go out picking student by student out because it's not reflecting who's truly in our school full time. Because again, kids will come in, not show up for a week, but that's because then they go into the impact program. But again, that's going to skew our data. So
Got it, okay, all right.
I mean, I'm not cherry picking as much. I'm just saying, is this truly the kids who are on our campus 100%, who should be on our campus 100% of the time?
Yeah.
And just for whatever reason, stop coming.
Okay,
In
thank
this
you.
complex, David, I just want to point out that Ian's further away from your office than I am, so I would say I hear about it more just for the record.
Yeah, they can do the data. It's difficult. So, going off of this, Director Martinez brought this out. So, unexcused versus total absences. So, yeah, unexcused is a state law. So, we do have to look at that information. But that's the only thing the state looks at. If a kid is not there for again, they have given no reason to be absent, if that student hits certain thresholds, 3, 7, 15, we have to, by law, do certain things. That's the 𝒂𝒊𝒏𝒈. That includes, once they hit 15, scheduling the community engagement board, trying to have those wraparound services, not as a punishment, but what can we do to support this family to put their student in school? What our staff said was, that's great, but we have kids who are excused a ton. And it's not just kids going to Hawaii for 2 weeks. There's students that for health concerns or whatever it might be, mental health concerns, motivation concerns, their parents are excusing. I mean, I had a conversation with a parent last year who said, I don't know what to do anymore. I keep excusing it, but he just won't get out of bed. I'm not excusing it anymore. Do what you need to do. And yeah, so those are the parents that we're trying to ultimately in that tier 3 bucket.
So does the, sorry to interrupt you again, so does this number here, is that unexcused or all?
That's all.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, so we want to expand ours.
Yeah.
So hearing from our teachers saying, yeah, there's the unexcused, but we're actually concerned about these kids who are excused and aren't showing up.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
okay.
we shifted ours from what the state requires, because we're overachievers, but we're looking at total absences.
That's great.
So we're
Gotcha,
looking at
okay.
excused plus unexcused. We're looking, I'm pooling it all in a big pot and saying, your kid, was absent this many times. And a family might say, well, they were sick, they have this illness, they have the flu for 2 weeks. Well, that's okay. We're reaching out to you. And what we've already noticed, just having this conversation with our staff, I've had more teachers, just again, this is anecdotal, I'm not monitoring this, but reaching out already to ask about students who have been absent, just starting that conversation. What's also hard at the high school is, in elementary school, you have one teacher. That teacher knows that kid is, if they're there or not. When you get to middle school, you have a team of teachers, and they're looking after it. Well, at the high school, two kids can have 6 completely different teachers, and what's been really great is teachers actually reaching out, CCing me in the email, but saying, hey, have you guys noticed that Johnny hasn't been at school lately? And then that conversation starts, and then I'm bringing the data in, and then let our counselor be like, yeah, here's what's going on in that family. So we've been able to kind of wrap those things around. And a lot of the students are getting caught, but this gives us a way of making sure, again, it's not just that net, that some of the kids are being caught, that we're catching all the kids who are fitting in there. The other thing, too, is we're looking at monthly versus annual. Obviously, yes, the data is going to be measured at the end of the year, but we're each month looking at that data, doing, like middle school is, we're doing zone letters, so families will know each month how well they're doing or how often their student is showing up.
But you're doing it cumulative for a month, yeah.
That will be our overall
Yeah.
goal, is to see that cumulative total, because that was the data I took from last year. I couldn't go back month by month, so I just took the whole data. So we're going to look at that, but I'm actually targeting as part of my action plan each month, looking at that data and reaching out as much as we can. So,
Okay.
I think that's it.
And I just want to mention one other thing. So very often attendance gets perceived as an office problem, something for the office to deal with.
Right.
And so David's been really intentional this year about working with staff to define that first foundational in tier 1. What does that look like to make coming to school and being in class an important and desirable thing? And so working with staff to identify, helping them be explicit with classes about how important it is to be in class and that the things that they're doing in class matter. It's not just things that can be done on your bed at home. Talking about greeting kids at the door, so all of these things are obviously very tied together. Being able to speak, finding your voice, and then feeling like you belong and want to be in class. And so one of our really important action steps for this particular goal is really developing explicitly that tier 1 foundational stuff that every student should experience that encourages them to be at school and enjoy being at school before we get to the tier 2 and tier 3, that's when it becomes the office problems, right? But attendance is one of those things that a lot of people think that's an office problem.
Right.
Yeah,
No.
what's nice about the MTSS is that everything in Tier 1 is really proactive, right? So we can
Right.
plan it out, we can put time and thought into it. When you get to Tier 2 and Tier 3, it's reactive steps, and so we want to do as much as we can in that proactive Tier 1 space.
Yeah, the thing I love about it is with what you're doing, it also tells the kid and their parent that they matter, right? I think that's one of the most important things in all that, right? You're not just ignoring the fact that they're not there, right? So I think that's great.
Our classes are so much better when our students are in them.
Right, absolutely.
There's not a whole lot of learning that happens
Yeah.
when students are not in the classrooms. We saw what
Yeah.
that looked like during COVID.
Yeah.
It's not what we wanted to be.
My comment to you all is I've appreciated that your goals fit almost perfectly within our KPIs. And so
Yes.
it's I hadn't thought so much of goal 2 as a necessary component to on-track graduation. So that's
And I
great.
think too, with that shift in TPAB, it's going to be a really big focus too, just making sure that we're finding ways to connect our families and our students to what's happening in the classroom, because ultimately, we're public servants of the community, right? So that's what we should.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say two things. Thing number one is, just to echo what Danny said, is I really appreciate the format of these school improvement plans.
Yeah.
I wish Ellie was here so I could send it to her as well, but I think the way we're doing these is much more valuable for me as a board director than kind of the way they were when I first became a board director. So it's really helpful. I appreciate it. The second thing I wanted to say is the lady's name that came and spoke on sort of multi-language. Her name is Cartagena, is that right?
Susie Cartagena.
Susie?
Susie.
Susie, okay. I really appreciated that conversation, more so than I had anticipated, as my new job has me interacting with people who don't speak English very well. And I had a wild experience the other day in which the person who was a volunteer who speaks Spanish, I asked her to come with me and speak with these guests. And we talked for a little while, and she couldn't understand what they were saying because they spoke some other version of Spanish that she didn't understand. And not only that, but my translator, although she spoke Spanish, she could hardly read nor write it. And it really made me think back to the conversation that we had that day when Susie Cartagena came and talked about the dynamics of that. It was really useful for me to think back on that. And so I think that doing the goals around multilingual learners is really helpful. I think it's great stuff. So anyway, I appreciate it. Thanks.
I just want to take a second just to say thank you for coming and being a part of all this and our growth and our learning as a board. And I know you're being called away from home, and it's just one more thing, but it's appreciated. So thank you.
Can I make a motion that we take a 5-minute break? Is that okay?
5 minutes.
Second.
Second. Okay.
All-
All approve, say aye.
Aye.
5-minute break.
Yes, so if you just move straight across.
Mics are on.
There's a bridge in the road. Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
No, I was gonna print something. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Yeah? You good sitting on the other side? But the same, yeah. But the same.
I do. I know.
Follow up.
Right now, only like 15.
Did you like my grimace joke?
I did.
I knew you would get it.
I don't know, but we're very excited about it. We have like 3 boxes right now we haven't opened.
Oh, I see.
Is that the,
And the happy heels? There's a dog called Business. He's the dog he's in outfits, and they are hilarious.
Are they
Yes. I guess how and then I don't know what it looks like, you know, and I'm like, literally day-to-day, need-to-know basis. You know? And that's one reason why we don't have
Oh, here we go.
That's why we're where he wants to. Here we go. This is They might be. That's what Ritchie said. That's what she said. Biscuit. Slippers. Oh yes. He's got air towels. And it's just. Wait, you should see his cowboy boots. Let me see if I can find a cowboy boot with it. I have so much. Biscuit is one of my favorites. You're only follow dogs and museums and a couple of people.
So the East Valley Superintendent is one of them.
Oh, here we go.
Brian Talbot. And the other one is here locally, our superintendent.
You such joy.
Our superintendent, but 𝒂𝒄𝒕𝒊𝒄𝒕𝒄 didn't sign on to our.
No. They've been on that call. They've been on those calls. 12 of them.
And East Valley is also not on our amendment.
Correct. So East Valley and East Valley's athletic director came on and spoke to the group. So that is where Veronica was from. She was a student. She was the student athlete.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, how'd it go with Julie? Did you just want to give an update, a brief high-level update, and say that we'll do something deeper later, or just nothing at all?
I know I'm not ready, and I can't speak for him. Because we had more information today, and we still have the high school yet to be posted online. So we don't have access to that yet.
Well, that's why I was calling you on Friday.
Gotcha. Sorry.
It's all right. But
I was not in that mental space afterwards to kind of, I don't know.
as you remember the last meeting that we kind of talked about it, there was this question of, does the board want a presentation or not a presentation? Let's let Danny and Kush go meet, and then let's talk about what would be an appropriate step. And so, if
Right, no,
anything today,
yeah, we didn't talk about time frames, so that would be helpful.
just talk. Is that what makes the most sense for the board? Is to have a summary of sex education, or
We'll do the summary, but we have to, like I said, the high school is not yet posted, so we're gonna divide it amongst us, and then I don't know what his timeline would be. So
I'm just wondering, would it be helpful to talk about that tonight?
No. Tonight?
Not give detail of it, but just talk about what's the plan going forward.
We could just basically mention
If they don't want it, they don't want
it's
it.
up and running.
Mike's on. All right, we're going to reconvene. We're going to move on to first readings, policy 5515, workforce secondary traumatic stress.
Thank you. This is an essential policy. I am recommending adoption of policy 5515, workforce secondary traumatic stress. This policy is a result of the passing of Senate Bill, what's H stand for?
Oh, yeah.
1363. in 2021. The intent of first readings is for the board to seek clarification, service interests, and communicate wonderings that may or may not include the need for guidance from legal counsel. First reading also announces proposed changes to the public and subsequently provides an opportunity to receive public input and for the district to conduct further study if needed prior to the second reading. I've included a clean version of the proposed new policy and a link to the corresponding administrative procedures referenced in the policy. These administrative procedures are a draft and will be finalized and published following an adoption of the policy. No recommended action on the first reading. So this, we have discovered these before. I just give one more insight before you have some discussion. We have discovered that there were some updates in transition of leadership within the Lynden School District at a time in which transitioning out of COVID, we had interim superintendent, we had change at the district office, and that legal and policy news process resulted in us occasionally coming upon policies that are essential that we do not have. And so that is why this is coming here. The timing is good, however, in that we also are very interested in working on a committee related to supporting staff.
I think this is great. I know it's the first reading, but we met on Thursday to talk about the agenda. This came up. We talked about, well, should we put this on the agenda? We agreed we should go on the agenda. And then Friday, I had experiences with drug-addicted homeless people looking for food, looking for clothes. This lady shows up in her car. She can't even get out of her car because she doesn't have clothes. And it just was really difficult for me to process that. I'm an IT guy. Computers and computer people who aren't actually real people. That's a joke for anybody that's paying attention. And I thought back to this policy, and I think that this is super important work. And we even we had a class today at New Way about trauma and that impact, and the issue of secondary trauma came up. And so I think that this is super important stuff, and so I'm glad that we're looking at it.
Agree. District-wide Workforce Mental Health Committee. So can you give us a little more background on that, David? Who's on the committee? Is it volunteers? Is it?
No.
Okay.
In terms of staff volunteers?
Staff volunteers.
I'm not exactly sure how they'll be identified. It would probably be a request of staff that are interested, and if it were to be beyond their regular contracted time, then they would be compensated for that. We haven't worked out those details yet.
Got it.
And so basically, generally, it'd be one teacher and classified staff member in the K-8 level, one teacher and a classified staff member at the high school level, a staff member from student services or support staff, like a school counselor, social worker, and then a central office administrator who would have funding authority around that, and then a K-8 building administrator and one high school building administrator. We also think it's important to make sure that we have representation of connection with our labor group partnerships.
Sure.
As this would be a shared interest in their leadership as well.
Okay.
So
thanks.
So we've already taken some steps to coordinate and organize a group to do that. I mean, we don't need a policy or procedure to do it,
right?
But it is a requirement to have the policy. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I appreciate that.
Mr. 𝒔𝒊𝒏𝒈, you want to add anything to that?
Smalley and I have an initial planning meeting scheduled for next week. So we're going to start to look at OSPI has published some helpful guidelines, so we'll take a look at that and then really work to determine next steps. So I want to get this in front of the board and then we'll get to work on it.
Cool. Okay.
Mr. 𝒔𝒊𝒏𝒈, for you say the OSPI guidelines, is that something that's on their website?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, moving on to second readings for policy 2401, financial education mastery-based learning and credit. Finally,
At the first, well, we've had it.
I know, but there's more of an, like, there's a,
Okay.
let's make sure these
Okay.
kids know how to, not
And this-
balance a checkbook, that's not a thing anymore, apparently.
There's a
Balancing
little
a
bit of an odd. There's a little bit of an odd one as well, in that it really is about work experience, paid work experience, and getting credit for paid work experience. But the only way to get it is if the elective credit is financial math or financial education, which is really just it's an odd way to get at it.
So there's not an opportunity, if you have a job, to then come back and get credit for this class and have an understanding of, like, here's some options for putting it in savings or anything like that?
No,
Oh,
that
yeah,
is
okay,
that is it.
okay.
It's part of that work experience. There'll be learning outcomes
Okay.
that are attached to. So it is getting at what you're hoping for as well.
All right.
So after the first reading on September 19th, there were no concerns or suggestions to amend the language in the policy. So no notes have been added. Prior to your discussion, I would like to add some information. This came as a recommendation from Principal Freeman, led me to do research on the bill and also the RCW. In that process, after the first reading, there's been a professional educator in our system that has surfaced some concerns about the policy, and the concerns pretty much lie with that is it a slippery slope that will then create will create requirements, or will then allow OSPI or WASDA to put other requirements on mastery-based learning outcomes. And so my recommendation is to adopt this evening, and I will continue to work with Mr. Freeman and the teacher and probably WASDA's legal counsel, and at some time may come back and potentially recommend to retire the policy. But the reality of it is we do have some students that will benefit, and right now the way WI is directing us is that this is an essential policy that must be in place in order to offer credit.
You mean WASDA, right? You said
WASDA, sorry.
Okay,
WASDA.
all right.
To offer credit. And so the alternative would be to not do anything now and allow for some more review and clarification from WASDA's legal team. I think that covers it. Basically, the educator doesn't agree with WASDA's interpretation of the RCW 28A 300-469 that then leads WASDA to make this as a requirement of this policy. But the reality of it is WASDA has.
I thought this was an encouraged policy.
It is encouraged, but it's required if you're a district that wants to give paid work experience.
Credit for paid work.
Credit for
paid
that.
work experience.
Right. That's right.
I'll entertain a motion to approve policy 2401, financial education mastery-based learning and credit.
I'll move that we approve policy 2401.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made, second. Any discussion?
Just for clarification, if we approve this, there may come a time in the future when we come back and strike it.
Yeah, I'll continue to work on clarity. It's been a good dialogue between this individual and Mr. Freeman and myself. I think a next step would be reaching out to WASDA's legal counsel and getting some clarity. It's non-controversial. We're having good dialogue around this. The reason to come back would be if we conclude that we have a current policy that appears to already allow it. If we come in doing that, then there may be a recommendation to retire the policy.
But there is a benefit currently to passing this.
There's a benefit currently to pass
for
it.
students. Okay.
Yes.
So just to be clear, the individual you're talking about.
Mhm.
So we're going to pass a policy that allows us to award credits towards graduation for if a student has a job, essentially, right?
Yep.
And we can only really do that if we pass this policy. And the educator that you're referencing seems to think that if we kind of go along with that, then it means that WASDA could do other things where they say, in order to award that credit, you have to have this policy. Is that the summary of the concern?
That's I think, an accurate summary. That's more nuanced and detailed potentially. It's tied to kind of the mastery based credits.
Okay.
Anybody else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried by voice vote.
Kylie?
On to second reading for policy 32401, student discipline.
Notes have been added next to specific language in the policy that was discussed by the board during the first reading on September 19th. So I'd recommend a motion, a second.
Oh, yeah, entertain a motion.
A second. Oh, sorry, I'll make a motion to approve updated policy 3241 for student discipline.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any discussion? None. Okay, all in favor, say
Are
aye.
you okay?
Yes.
Hi. No, I think you were
I
just
checked out at the 5-minute rest. This is why we don't do it. I have to keep going.
Sorry about that.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried by voice vote.
Thank you.
Okay,
Just so in case somebody's opposed.
all right. Any opposed? No?
Okay.
All right. Thanks for your patience. Board workshop, WASDA prioritization of our positions out of the 200 and some odd.
This is really good, by the way. I don't know if this has been done in years past, but
We
just
did it last year.
wonderful. Love it.
That's good.
Do you mind if I just read a little cover letter? Okay, so directors have been provided, following the General Assembly held on September 2021 of 2024, WASDA has published their updated positions catalog. School boards are asked to review and review the revised positions and submit, not a prioritized list, submit a list to WASDA by October 8. Directors have been provided this information ahead of time and have submitted individually ranked lists of top 10 priorities. Those lists were combined to form a master list for review and potential re-ranking at tonight's board workshop. The purpose of this workshop is to finalize a list of priorities for submission to WASDA. And so board directors, in front of you, you have two documents. The first document is your ranking, a summary of the rankings that you provided. What happened was I took the ranking and I provided a point total to that ranking and then divided it by 5. And so that's so that there are some unique positions that were included. And if you divide and make an average, then if only one person puts it in, then that average would be skewed because no one else had put it in. And so in the way the numbering went, if you voted as your top priority, it received 10 points. Those points were added, divided by 5, and that created an index. And so in front of you, you have your index that was created. The top would be 6.0, which is your top priority based on your voting or your submissions. And so then what else is put together for you are the positions that received any votes. There were 13 unique positions. There was a summary of each of the positions there to help navigate your discussion.
Well, I just like to say that I'm offended. Offended, I say that, only Danny and I rated artificial intelligence technology. No, I'm just.
Well, and I think there's more information coming out about it, like there was, I'm assuming that's gonna actually be on their main top, whatever, list of 5 that they actually, it's not a bet, but I think it's gonna be on there. And I just wanna say that the association autonomy, when I looked at this list, and maybe, I think Director Verburg did the same, which was looking at ones that are legislative priorities, but now that I see the association autonomy, I want to mention that, WASDA has its own board. And on their board are their own elected committees. So like when we're putting in our proposals, those will go to a legislative committee, resolutions committee. So I believe it's open for people, if you're on the school board anywhere in the state, that you can try to get elected onto the WASDA school board. So I'm not interested, but I think it's open. I don't know the exact closing date, so I hope it's not been cut off, but anyway, it's a thing.
I don't think so, but yeah. That's a good
But
one.
yeah, I mean, and this is just to kind of give you, because I want this committee to continue on when I'm off the board. And one of the things that, Director Verburg and myself spent all day Friday, and all the proposals we put forth, like the ones in regards to local control, none of those obviously passed. But I guess it was, I took solace in the fact that of the things that actually are public education related that aren't of a cultural bend, I felt confident that, wow, okay, we're still trying. We're still trying to fund our schools and, be about education. I don't know if you feel that way. I felt like there was some definite, 98% on things that matter. And so, yeah, we didn't get anything we wanted, but there's hope in that these are good things to advocate for that we can get behind.
Yeah, I agree with you, Director. On the ones that, so yeah, there's a lot that I think most school districts agree on. There were several votes, especially on some of these issues that are here, that it was like 98% passing. So that's good to see that kind of consensus on those sorts of things. But then there were the other things that we feel are important, like the local control issues, and consistently. It got to be a joke because I kept, we did part of the meeting here and then part of the meeting at home, and I kept texting Director Hickman saying, it's going to be another 70-30 vote, 70-30, 70-30, right? And so that kind of gives you the idea of and we're on the 30% side, just to be clear.
Yeah, and Director Brar had made a good point, like as far as there was 226 proposals and ones that we can put maybe more energy around retiring.
Right.
Just to hone in the focus.
Sure.
And ones if we want to draft our own or whatever, make more of an attempt to make amendments. But the other piece too is there is an energy that I also want to create going forward around, just like this WIA amendment, that possibly we make more of a concerted effort, meet with local school boards in our county.
That's absolutely right.
To kind of more delve into this. But anyway, that's what I'm hopeful about.
Yeah.
So the activity before you is to take those amended positions and make a determination on the 10 that you will submit to WASDA, that they will then mix up with all the other school boards that have given input to develop their list of legislative platform, So the question is, do you want to go forward with the 10 that are shaded, or is there an interest in changing any of those? They are not presented in any prioritized way.
Right.
And so that is what the question is. That is the purpose of the workshop.
For my part, it's comforting enough that most of these we all felt sort of similar about, and they're all about sort of fully funding schools. We all feel strongly about that. I make the joke about the artificial intelligence thing. I don't really expect that to make any inroads to the top 10. I do think if you look at the Safe Routes to School one, which is one that I had put on my list, and a couple others did as well, that's also about fully funding. I know there's been conversations on our board about various spots within throughout the city where we need maybe to spend some money, and so that's why I thought that might be one. I mean, I don't really know what neighborhoods known for violence or crime is, but I think that's supposed to say violence for the recording. But nonetheless, I think that would be one. Now, having said that, I'm not sure which one I would take off.
Yeah, that's the question.
To
is
put
which
that
one
one
you
up there.
move up, you move out.
But it is one that's has some very specific connotations to our community and conversations that this board has had. So, other than that,
Yeah, I like that the support for special ed programs is in there, even though it's like, yeah, just you. But I think that's very. I think it's important.
I do too. It's
right. I wouldn't want to
more
kick
funding,
that one out.
I think is always needed for our special ed programs. So.
Yeah. I mean, it goes with our budget, right, that we're footing the bill for some of that.
Yep, so.
What I wonder if there's not a conversation though, like we have our joint session with the city, if that's something that we can continue to hammer at.
Yeah.
That's all I got. And it's, okay, so it's due the 8th. Do you want me to go on my computer and submit those, Kelly?
So we're going to go forward with the 10 that are stated.
Do we need to vote on it, or?
You don't need to vote on it.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine with this 10.
That too.
Yep.
yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right, let this go. Okay, so approval of WASDA position prioritization. Yeah, look at that. It is an action item.
So there we go.
Okay.
Sorry,
All,
we put in an action item.
That's right.
You didn't have to vote on it during workshop.
okay. Moving on to action item. All in favor of approving the position?
Need to make a motion?
Oh, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve and finalize the top 10 priorities as written and highlighted on there for submission to WASDA.
Seconded.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried
Do
by
you, what did you say, aye or nay?
I said aye.
Okay.
Second action item, approval of the fuel bid for 24-25.
District issued a request for bids on September 4 and 11th via newspaper for unleaded and diesel fuel for the 24-25 school year. Bids were due by September 24, 2024. Reisner Distributing was the only bid received by the district and is compliant with the bid specifications. This is the same vendor that the district has been using since August of 2022. Information on bid amounts from Reisner Distribution that were approved at that time and the proposed amounts for the 24-25 school year are below. The 24-25 budget adopted by the board provides sufficient line item capacity for the rates contained in the bid. I recommend approval of the bid submitted by Reisner Distributing for the 24-25 school year.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I have a question. This is going to sound like a silly question. I should have asked it via email, but how is it that the school district is getting lower rates for diesel and gasoline than what they got 2 years ago? Is there any explanation for that? Is there a volume increase, or is there any way to? I know it's probably been questioned, but
it probably is a big question. I think at the time of the bids, it is connected to rates at the time of the bids.
Sure. Wholesale prices probably.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yes, and so then I do have some other details, and so then that would explain, I think, why the rates are different at the time of the bid. So then I asked, so we bid on something and it stays at those rates. So are we paying that rate through the life of the contract? The answer to that question is in my notes. And the answer is no. They get adjusted, and it's actually related to a percentage of the consumer price or something, some price index that is used, and it's within that bid. So it adjusts and fluctuates as we go, and so.
Would have been nice.
Or we could just
stay
stay
low.
Our gas price is going to come down.
I'm not allowed to talk about that.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Wait a second, I'm not quite ready to vote on this.
Okay, that's fine.
So, well, Director Martinez, were you about to say it would have been nice to see the language of that contract?
No. I was making a silly joke. Disregard my comments.
Okay.
So.
Well, I guess there's no choice, so I'll say aye as well.
We only have one bid.
Okay, I'll do this again. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried by a voice vote. All right, next on this board committee reports. I know that you guys met with Dr. Van White, but it sounds like we're not ready to have that conversation yet.
We can just briefly mention we had a meeting before this and just went over the website where you can find the 5th grade curriculum for sexual education, 6th, 7th, 8th, and due to circumstances of life, waiting for the high school stuff that will come out eventually. It's encouraging for me to know that we have links are working from what we witnessed. Now, we haven't had time to go, Director Brar and I have not had time to go through the whole comprehensive sexual education curriculum for all the grades, but it's something that we're hoping to do and then come back and let the board know what we've seen, so.
I would say this, that, in order to kind of have an expectation of time frame is, first we need to discuss, divide our work, because it's a lot of work and a lot of, to go through. So once we have that determined, we'll let the board know a good, time frame on when you can expect a report from us. Only one key takeaway, and that would be only for the record for this teaching and learning, is back when comprehensive sexual education was introduced, right, by the legislation, there was obviously fear, there was confusion, and those are normal things to have in the community, especially when we're talking about the education of our children. But the good thing is, when you have your information and facts laid out, that's, what helps to eradicate or help, clear that confusion. So as far as comprehensive sexual education goes, the curriculum for our district, as the law allows, we make our own. So, and then there are reporting requirements for that. So the key takeaway from this, just for today, so we have something of substance to share, is that we make our own curriculum, and obviously we have great trust in our teachers, in our educators, and in our district as a whole. So yeah, I guess I would just say is that I don't expect to find anything inappropriate in the curriculum, but as it is a responsibility of our committee that we have taken upon, once we are able to go through that, we'll come back with a little bit more extensive report and give you an overview for each grade, and we'll go from there.
That's great, thanks guys.
Okay, on the Finance Committee.
I guess that's my turn. So, and I'll invite Superintendent VanderYacht to chime in too. So I held a meeting the morning of September 30th with Finance Director Ben, and it was a good meeting. We talked a little bit about some of the questions that Director Martinez had about the e-resources contract. The big takeaway I took from that is that contract, I think, is coming up again in 2026. And so, yeah, there'll be some decisions made as to whether to continue that contract or not, or what direction we go with that, and looking at, alternatives. But I think from what I heard from Ben and Superintendent about it, right now, that the services we get from e-resources is working for us. It's much better than where we were a few years ago, especially with COVID and everything and the increased amount of stress on our tech program. And so they're doing a reasonably good job. So that was good. And then in terms of the budget, Ben's working on closing out last year's fiscal budget, and the big takeaway from that, it all looks good. I think we're gonna have some board action I'm trying to remember. Is there board action to approve that? Yep. So sorry, I'm a little fuzzy on those details. It was really early that morning.
And Danny skipped out.
I know.
Unable to attend.
Yes.
So end fund balance.
Yeah, and fund balance, yeah.
The
was
end
big
fund
takeaway.
balance is such, and the needs with capital projects, we are looking at transferring some money from a general fund into capital fund, which is a requirement it's allowed to
Right.
transfer general fund into capital fund, but then you have to then use those funds on capital project improvements. And so some of those things we took off when we were talking about the scope of the bond need to be addressed. And so looking at moving some of those resources into capital facilities, and Director Brar asked, is that something that the board does? And the answer to that is a yes.
We will do that.
So
yeah.
I will
We'll
come
vote
with
on
a
that.
recommendation of transferring funds.
Right.
And then we'll have
Along
a
with
list
Okay.
of
Yep.
those
With the-
those recommended expenditures that would be attached to that.
Yeah. And we can have a board discussion on that time if that's the appropriate list of priorities, and, but it's a good list.
I would just add on to Director Verburg. I'm not sure what words were necessarily used. We do have a contract with Resources through August of 2026, and we're continuing to review and determine whether that service model is the most effective service model and efficient service model. And so we've been working at this for a while. And as that contract comes, then our team will be giving some information. And Danny, I'd love to just follow up with you and kind of go through that, so you understand that contract, what's included in all that contract.
I wouldn't mind participating in that conversation as well.
That'd be
With
great.
My background, I think it could be, I don't want to overtake the responsibility on Ben, but, yeah.
I fully support that. I think that would be great.
And one thing I wanted to add for the legislative, WASDA's prior to top 5 will be, I think, out October 23rd. Yeah, will be their final list, so.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I got. Anybody else? No? Okay, moving on to information from board directors. I hope there's none.
I'm not prepared to present anything today, but just being in discussions and at least next meeting I'll be more prepared, but just have in mind that I've had discussions about the transitional kinder play areas and the lack of that, and just if there's anything that we can do to get some type of structures or something within the schools that are currently participating. I don't think this is a program that's going to go away anytime soon, at least I hope not. And so I just think that it's something that we need to just have in our
Have you
our
been
mind.
and observed the
Yeah,
area?
and
Okay.
I've got a few pictures that I've sent to me, but like I said, I'm not ready to share because I haven't visited all of them quite yet. So
Oh, okay.
just waiting to do that, and then I'll share a little bit more with the board, just some of my thoughts, and as we discuss budget as well. So
That was the one change from the February bond to the August bond, was the adding of the playgrounds in the language to allow for that to happen. So
yeah,
And-
which it didn't pass. So.
Oh, it didn't.
Surprised.
One of the things I was thinking about prior to even coming to this meeting is the idea of what does it mean to create critical thinkers in our students? And I think one thing that keeps coming up in my brain is this idea of asking questions. And I hope that when we're going forward, prior to even coming to this meeting, is that we're purposeful about asking questions without assumptions being tied to them. And I saw it tonight when someone asked a question, and it's like, but do we even have that? Is that even a thing in our district? There's the, like you touched on, the boogeyman, and then there's the actuality of like, what's in Lynden schools, what's it about, are we actually living out our purpose and educating students and getting them career college ready, you know, and being a part of our mission and vision. And I just hope that when you're asking those questions that it's tied to our job here as board directors. Are we making a concerted effort to know because our intentions we're for our district, or is it tied to we're making assumptions based on this ethereal thing that's out there that's bad? And I'll be quite honest, we have done everything with our girls from homeschooling, traditional school, partnership programs, blah, blah, blah. And so when I came on, there was it was from COVID, this deep sense of like, I don't know, is it this thing? But then when I met with different administrators, it was like, it alleviated my concerns and my fears, and also just humbled me quite a bit to be like, this is a huge machine, and there are so many different things turning and things in motion and things that our district deals with that are not displayed out there in the public. And so it kind of just made me really just reflect on like, what is my purpose here? Am I for this thing that I'm a part of, or am I not for this thing that I'm a part of? And I think that that's one of those, like, we need to come at it from this place of like, just genuine, like, we're for it, or we're not for it, and yeah, so anyway, thank you for the discussion today. Thank you for everything that you guys are doing and all the time, but, you know, they're all offering their time as well, and so I just want to be respectful to everybody. And if there's nothing else, then I would love to adjourn this meeting. Okay, is there more?
There was, but that's okay. We're respectful of everybody's time, so I'll just,
If you have something to say, Director Brar,
Sure.
that's what we're here for.
You gave us a heads up. I prepared some things.
well, like I said, for this moment, just right now, just so you all know, if I'm questioning why I'm here and what am I here for, and whether or not what I'm saying to you guys are facts or they're just assumptions, just know that they are not. I'm not a crazy person to tell you that. I don't know. I'm just a parent who's trying to do right by my children. All of our children. The non-discrimination law, I think about it, applies equally to everyone. But right now, it's preferential. So do we cave in just because, you know, we're making, I don't know, decisions on assumptions that haven't been proven yet? So I'm not here to make you look bad. I'm not here to throw you under the bus. It's not that. I'm just here to lay out the facts. That was my purpose. And if I have hurt you, then I'm sorry. But I'm looking at my children, how they're going to be, you know, growing up in this kind of environment. And can we really not do something? And the answer to that was no. That there was. So.
And we are doing something. And so I do actually take offense to it, like I told you in the hallway. I honestly, between the two of us, and this is recorded, it was totally virtue signaling, and it was unacceptable. Because you just threw my name under the bus from everything that I've tried to do going forward, and the countless hours that I spent behind the scenes, and the questions that I've asked, and the information I'm trying to seek, and the conversations that I've had with different people. And you were totally okay with that. Didn't matter. So all those people think that I'm this thing that I'm never going to have conversations with. And I would never do that to another person. Ever. I hate gossip. I'm an adult. I don't do it. It's not part of the Christian narrative. If I do it, I apologize for it because that's what adults do. So I appreciate the sentiment of what you're saying, but I absolutely think you were purposeful in doing it. And yeah, I'm not okay with it. And so I do need time because trust has now been broken, and that's not what we're about as a board. And like Director Owsley and every people have remarked, is we're all on the same team. And I don't feel like that was the intention behind. I don't think you're on our team, Director Brar.
And that's okay. That's okay. You can say your piece, and I will take that as a sign of respect and courtesy, even though I don't agree. But time will tell whether or not I was right. At least I tried. So
One of the core components to building a team and maintaining it is trust and safety. And if we as a board don't have that as the foundational component to what we do, then nothing we do here, we're only creating stumbling blocks for ourselves. So I know it takes courage to do what you did, Director Brar, and I wholeheartedly agree with President Hickman's comments. I think we need to do better. We just need to do better for the sake of our community and for the sake of this board and for the sake of our kids, because this is what we're about. We're not here for our own agendas or our own political careers. We're here for the kids of this community, whether we have them in the system or not.
If there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.